What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Celestial Invitational NSL Hearthstone Masters, and we have a switch up in our casters, obviously, or switch up in the Chinese casters, I was about to say, but we have Derek on replacing Abar, and in the Chinese casters side, looks like we have Bing Xuan on the right side and Zhongbo casting again on the left side. So a lot of player action on the casters for the Chinese stream. But our next match, even though less big names for the Western scene, still big names overall. JasonZhou obviously went to BlizzCon this year. He's going off against Lovelychook, who defeated Colento earlier this year in EU versus CN for that Ferrari. And a big match as far as the group is concerned, because looking at the situation right now, the winner of this match will be either in second or third place, depending on how much they win by. The winner will be in last, or excuse me, the loser will be in last. Sorry. So
yeah,
anywhere from second to sixth for these two players coming up right now.
Yeah, it's really close between these both of these players. They've obviously both won one series and lost two series, so they're 1 and 2. And JasonZhou has a win-loss ratio in terms of matches of 0, whereas Lovelychook is at -2, so it's very, very close. And given how close this Group B is in general in terms of wins and losses, nobody getting a blowout victory and winning all their matches or losing all their matches. So the win-loss ratio of individual matches is going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, the only player who is set as far as their position in the group is Tice, who is at 3 and 1 and a +8. And because Reina just beat Colento, they are both 2 and 2. So Tice is the only player with that winning record there, and no one able to catch up to him this week. Next week that could be possible, but he does decide his own fate. Speaking of Tice, if he does win his match, he will be guaranteed first place. He's already guaranteed to move out of the group. As we do take a look at our fan polling here, it looks like they do favor JasonZhou, obviously coming off that semi-final appearance at BlizzCon. So, and I do not disagree with them, I would say.
Yeah, very understandable. We've seen he obviously played fantastically at BlizzCon. We've seen him playing pretty well here as well. We've seen a few of his matches. He's adapted very well to the different formats we've seen. It's been interesting seeing how the different players have prepared in terms of the amount of preparation they've put into the wild format, and also what direction they've gone with the decks that they've brought. So I'd be really interested to see if he goes for the more traditional kind of decks that we've seen in terms of certain classes. Like throughout this, we've seen pretty much exclusively Secret Paladin in this particular week of a pure wild format, and very hardly any Murloc or N'Zoth Paladin. So I wonder what his kind of philosophy will be with different sorts of decks he can bring.
Yeah, you know what, I'm not even thinking about the decks right now. I'm thinking about how these players are going to perform after they just casted a best of 17, because last time they were both on the casting desk just now, surrounding Tiddler a bit earlier, and the last time we saw this happen was when Zhongbo casted Life Coach and was dead afterward. He could not keep his head up. He was just falling asleep at his computer there, as that was a marathon stream the other day. In fact, our longest cast of the entire tournament a couple days ago, when we had both Eloise and Life Coach, two very deliberate players, going at it on that particular day. The original broadcast time, as far as both matches, both best of 17s back to back, went 8 hours and 41 minutes. And I was there for the entire thing, so I felt exactly how long it was, and Zhongbo was struggling by the end. Obviously, JasonZhou and Lovelychook did not just cast Life Coach, they casted a different match, so perhaps they hold up a bit better here, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and it looks like we're heading right into game 1 here. We've got the Rogue from JasonZhou up against Lovelychook's Druid. It appears, from what we can see here, that we've got JasonZhou going with a classic kind of Miracle Rogue, perhaps a N'Zoth variant, as we see the Undercity Huckster there, and looking probably like Lovelychook has got a Malagos Druid here. How do you reckon these decks are going to be lining up against each other, given what we've seen already in this wild format this week?
Typically, Miracle Rogue is a slight favorite in this matchup. I don't know how far JasonZhou has gone down the rabbit hole as far as making this a hybrid N'Zoth variant. It's possible he just put the Undercity Hucksters in there as an early option, because they're a pretty reasonable card, even if you don't put in the N'Zoth. But you can obviously put in things like Shredder and Belcher and immediately just make a nice N'Zoth deck. So I would be slightly surprised if he didn't go for that option. Just seems like the strongest thing to go with right now. But yeah, the rogue is just able to tempo out the druid in a few key turns. Druid, other than crazy arcane giant nonsense and ramp, typically they have a lot of clunky spells and minions in hand, and so over the course of a couple turns, sometimes they feel like they're a turn behind because of the tempo that the rogue can gain. But obviously that's incumbent on picking up things like sap here. But gonna be nice clear onto the first half of the shredder. If a 3-2 comes out, it's gonna be a nice trade, or a 2-2 works as well. And poison seeds.
Ooh.
JasonZhou's exactly like, yeah, that's a card. You can see, look, he's like, that is a card.
Could potentially obviously be used to take out some of the higher health minions that the druid can drop. Like if we see a board with an arcane giant and a Malagos on it, you slam that down easy peasy, and then hopefully you're able to mop up what's left up on the board. Thankfully for JasonZhou here, the Loatheb can be absolutely devastating against the rogue, but he has a very easy turn of just dropping the Tomb Pillager here. Lovelychook felt he had to go for that because it would be such a weak turn otherwise, even though he's well aware that he could have got much more value out of the Loatheb later on, just valuing the body here.
Yeah, exactly. It was either that or just Wrath Pass.
Sure.
Right now, looks like Lovelychook is considering whether he wants to drop the Thaurissan, and if he does, what minion he wants to take care of. Otherwise, he can just go ahead and clear this board out using the Living Root and the Swipe. His hand is a bit dry, so I do favor going for the Living Root rather than the Wrath here, even though it's a bit more expensive and fits the curve, because he likely wants to cycle this Wrath going forward.
Yeah, good point. And also, given the fact that his only minions are the Loatheb and the Emperor Thaurissan in hand, he's probably going to be favoring using the spells to destroy the enemy minions rather than trading his own minions, because his minions are more valuable than spells in his opinion at the moment.
It feels bad man moment for JasonZhou. Gonna have to play out this Sludge Belcher into a Loatheb and get easily traded into. He does have the Fan of Knives to clear up afterward, but unless he picks up a backstab right now, no clear kill onto this Thaurissan. The good news for JasonZhou is not a whole lot of value that's reduced in Lovelychook's hand. Just a couple of Wraths that he's looking to cycle anyway, and that Wild Growth. So JasonZhou could opt to just ignore the Loatheb on board. Could go for something like a Thanos Prep Fan Coin Van Cleef, something of that nature.
Yep, just thinking through it. Does sound like that could be an option. Doesn't want to go for that though.
Well, he can
I guess he's thinking.
He can still go for Coin Thanos Van Cleef, but looks like he's gonna just hold on to that option for future turns. He also has the Prep Poison Seeds for 1, clear the entire board and turn them into treants combo there. So that is also an option.
It's not bad because Rogue, obviously, now that Blade Flurry has left the meta basically completely, they just don't have a big board clear. So something like Poison Seeds, if it comes down to it, maybe if the game does go on to the really late game, we see a couple of Arcane Giants, could be a real surprise board clear, because obviously Lovelychook cannot be anticipating a Poison Seeds here.
Very poor drop off of that, off of the shredder there with the Bilefin Tidehunter. Lovelychook gonna go ahead and go for the Slime here. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him ramp, even though he is close to 10 men already, just to get the cycle off the Wild Growth a turn earlier for that tempo, because doesn't want to have the whatever minion he gets off of it or spell, what have you, turn later. N'Zoth comes into the hand of JasonZhou, and could this be a Poison Seeds turn? Nope, just gonna favor going for the Earthen Ring Farseer, and again, not going for the Van Cleave. I feel like getting an 8-in Van Cleave out there would be kind of nice at this moment. But I suppose I suppose he's waiting for Poison Seeds Van Cleave, the clear opponent's board and play Van Cleave afterward. But
yeah,
could have had a lot. The Van Cleave could have done a lot of work up to this point.
That's true. I think in this position I would have. I like going for the Van Cleef, maybe on a board that's slightly more empty, like you say, after the Poison Seeds. I'm really glad he didn't go for the Poison Seeds there, as you were thinking, because the Thaurissan is just not that threatening anymore, considering how few cards are in Lovelychook's hand and how much they've already been reduced.
Yeah, I don't mind not going for the Poison Seed. I'd just rather see the Van Cleef come out at some point, because JasonZhou has just been putting up boards that Lovelychook has been able to deal with turn after turn. Now finds himself in a bit of trouble here. Has no card draw, so what you see is what you get as far as his hand is concerned. Looks like he's leaning toward Poison Seeds. He can go prep Poison Seeds, backstab Tomb Pillager, Van Cleef, and then save the coin for the N'Zoth here.
Yeah, that works out really nicely. I guess what he's thinking was just, or when he didn't go for Van Cleef last turn, was just he needs that coin to get out the N'Zoth just a turn earlier because it's going to be such a powerful board. And not even just in terms of applying pressure to his opponent, but just keeping a dominance on the board would be really
That
nice for him.
is not
That is
another 0 mana
garbage.
cost card to pair with the other ones. If Lovelychook picks up 2 damage, he has lethal here, by the way, because of the Living Roots in hand.
True.
And that is not it, but it's something to put on the board here, potentially.
Yeah, not bad. I guess because even though JasonZhou obviously has 2 very powerful minions, Lovelychook's thinking if he can just get a whole bunch of little minions, then it might be too much for JasonZhou to pick them off one by one with his bigger minions, so we'll just be able to run his opponent down with a draw of just a little bit more damage. But whether or not that's going to be enough to get through the N'Zoth is an entirely another question.
Alright, so Lovelychook, I thought he might have gone for the trade here, but does go with the face. It does spawn on the 1-1. I think he might just opt to go for the Innervate as well, just to get out an extra 1-1 to push the damage. But
Yeah,
no, going to leave
like
his
that.
opponent at 2, which means that any other sort of Living Roots off the top or from the Raven Knight will. Right, okay, he is going to go for the Innervate in the end. But here is where, ooh, heal bots.
Ooh, okay.
So maybe we are not going for the N'Zoth here.
Yeah, I think we're definitely not. Have we seen a Sludge Belcher from JasonZhou, or was it
Yes,
just...
we have.
We have, okay.
He played it into the Lothab earlier.
That's correct. Yeah, right you are. So I like going for this here because it means there's less pressure on the board from Lovelychook. So if you can avoid a spell, if he could have avoided a spell the last turn, he could have gone for the N'Zoth. But I prefer going for the Antique Healbot here. And just making sure that once you get the Taunt up, you're much less likely to be killed by, as you said, a draw of a Living Roots.
Crucially, JasonZhou is at 5 health, so a swipe will not kill him through the Belcher now. If that were not the case, then perhaps he would have wanted to go for putting up the taunt first before he went for the heal. But JasonZhou gonna go ahead and get the double coin out so he can sap away this Shredder so he doesn't have to deal with it going forward.
But here we can see he actually doesn't get the Sludge Belcher. His board was too full, so he has no Taunt now on board. So all of a sudden, Swipe represents lethal all over again, as does Feral Rage if that's in his deck. It suddenly became a hell of a lot scarier for JasonZhou here.
I think that JasonZhou could have traded there and still had lethal in 2 turns, so playing maybe a bit too quickly here. And
yeah, good point.
I imagine he expected the Belcher to come down here, but did not come. But that's not going to make a difference because Lovelychook cannot kill off his own Shredder for some sort of Doomsayer action. Not that it matters because it'll go to his opponent's turn. So JasonZhou is going to find a way to come back off the back of N'Zoth. And N'Zoth is going to carry another player to victory here.
Yeah, worked out really well there again. We're just seeing, once again, as I've said previously on casts in this week's format, just having Sludge Belcher and Piloted Shredder is just enough in its own right. And considering you have powerful Death Rattle Rogue minions anyway, like the Undercity Huckster and Tomb Pillager, it just feels almost like an auto-include at this point.
Yep, well, we'll see what Lovelychook has to deal with it. Again, the meta in Wild is pretty insane, so it's not always easy to come up with something to counter. Having seen the heal bot, going for an aggressive deck isn't always, as great as it is nowadays against Rogue. Though we might see that anyway because of the fact there's only a couple of heal cards in the deck, and it could be a bit slow, especially because they don't have as many removal options as the typical Miracle Rogue does. Another option would be to potentially go for something like a Freeze Mage if he is running that, but we've seen players typically opt to go for the Mech Mage because it isn't as polarized. Can't pick up several wins in a row like we saw in the first best 17 of today.
Yeah, I think people are kind of feeling like the Freeze Mage is just not really a choice that you can go for in this format because it can line up really poorly against some of the extremely aggressive decks like the Mech Shaman or Mech Mage can just get in too much aggression early on. And also there will be some people going for the Control Warrior, whereas most people are going for the Patron Warrior. It's not that good even then just because of the prevalence of Armor Smith in that matchup.
Alright, well, Lovelychook is going to go for the Hunter here to try to counter out this Rogue. I do like this choice. A lot of aggressive options in his hand already. A couple of secrets to back him up as well, but this is likely just going to get taken out by the Backstab. If you're JasonZhou, don't want this to get any larger. Journey from Below picks up a few good options here, including Zeril and the Sludge Belcher. Already has Sludge Belcher in hand and the coin, so perhaps if he waits until turn 4, that could be an option. He's thinking about how his turns go. So he's thinking about his deck. Like, what can he possibly draw? Is he just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is he going to want to go for a coin Belcher on 4 and then Belcher on 5 here? So he's going to sit back and think about what's in this deck and what fits it best overall. Belcher it seems like the obvious pick, but since he already has in his hand, like if he didn't have Belcher in his hand, I imagine he just snap Belchers here. But Zaro is somewhat appealing as well.
It's a tough choice because obviously, as you're saying, I think individually the Sludge Belcher is just the best card, especially in this aggressive matchup. But I think what he was thinking is maybe next turn I'm going to go for a coin Edwin with a backstab, and that means that I don't have the option of going for turn 4 coin Sludge Belcher into Sludge Belcher. So he decides instead, right, I'm probably, if I take the Sludge Belcher, going to be using the coin later on, so I'll save it and maybe not use it in combination with the Edwin on turn 2.
Yeah, it looks like Lovelychook has played out the cat trick, so that will prevent JasonZhou from wanting to go for something like a coin Edwin Van Cleef on this turn. Not likely to be in his best interest anyway, because you'd rather just have coin and Sludge Belcher a bit later. But yeah, things aren't working out too well for Lovelychook. Had the Flare a turn earlier, and now picks up yet another dead card, considering he already had the Glavezuka. So it's going to be hero power pass for the Hunter, for the aggressive Hunter here, and that's not what you want to see as the Hunter.
Yeah, it's really poor for the Hunter there. He really wanted a minion, or if JasonZhou had gone for my line of play, which would have turned out to have been pretty poor in the end, of going for a turn 2 backstab coin Edwin, obviously the Secret Keeper would have survived, and the Secret Keeper would have been getting big value with stuff like the Freezing Trap in hand, could have been pumped up to a decent size, and then made better use of the Glavezuka as well. But the Barnes is a really nice top deck on turn 4, playing it on curve. Obviously just gets a vanilla minion here because the Battlecry doesn't activate on Lotheb, so a pretty low roll there.
So JasonZhou
still decent just to fight back.
Yeah, JasonZhou is testing some of the secrets now. Tested for Snake, Freezing, Bear, Explosive, and Misdirection here. And gonna bait out, or just get out this cat trick right now. Color Army surprised they just didn't go for the coin Belcher. Even with the cat trick coming out, it still would have been somewhat innocuous. Especially with no way to cleanly get through the Belcher unless the Glavezuka hit the right target. So yeah, go ahead.
I guess he was afraid of Snipe as the potential secret.
No, he already tested it. He already tested it with the Undersea Huckster.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I think, yeah, I probably would have preferred to see the Belcher there, because just going it turn after turn on 4 and 5 would have been really, really nice to shut down this, because it lines up really well against the minions we see on board. It would have lined up really well against the Cat in the Hat had it been procced.
Yeah, and does go for the Belcher a turn late here. And Lovelychook picks up some gas in the form of that Lotheb, but might want to buff up one of his minions here with the second Glavezuka. It is a bit of a risk. As it stands, he can already clear this off without too much issues, and Lotheb is just kind of too strong of a minion, especially going off against rogues. I imagine we're going to see that. Giant Sandworm, the pickup here for JasonZhou off the second, or off the Huckster here. Not going to be helping out too much, and yes, we do see the Lotheb here.
Yeah, I think the Giant Sandworm is not very nice. If he had a handful of spells, it would have been a lot nicer, but given how this deck seems to be a lot more minion heavy than Miracle Rogues can potentially be, he's not really looking for minions, especially not big ones like that. He's just looking for ways to keep up on the board, because he should win the value game in the long run against this very aggressive Secret Hunter.
Well, JasonZhou's going to take a bit of damage from this Cat in the Hat now that he's played up this Belcher. Didn't want to deal with the Freezing Trap. Obviously, Sludge Belcher is very good in the face of Freezing Trap. It doesn't really need to attack to get any value. And the Cat in the Hat gets buffed up here, which means that can push through this Belcher, and the Glavezuka can push through the other half of the Belcher here, and the Lotheb can go face. So yeah, JasonZhou's decision not to attack into the Cat in the Hat is going to end up punishing him here. Probably felt like it was either going into the Ooze or the Fan and Eyes was going to clean it up, but not the case here. And with Sap in hand, never want to sap the Lotheb, because that's obviously always an issue here. Gonna go ahead and clear that out with the Shadow Strike and the Van Cleef.
For JasonZhou here, though, the fact that Lovelychook decided not to attack into the Sludge Belcher with his Lotheb is going to be quite nice for him, because he gets off a really perfectly damaged, rationed Shadow Strike into this 8/8 Edwin Van Cleef. And Lovelychook, at the moment, doesn't have a good way of dealing with this at all. In fact, he has no way of dealing with it.
Well, he's just, instead of dealing with it, he's just gonna go to the face here. He does have the freezing trap on play, and not expecting
good
anything.
point. Yeah, of
not
course.
expecting anything like a Leroy Jenkins coming out of JasonZhou. And even if there was a Leroy Jenkins, there's still wasn't enough damage for JasonZhou to burst down. You typically don't see hybrid N'Zoth deck running too much burst. It's just kind of like the minion pressure that you have on there. So looking like it's going to be Lovelychook's game here. Not sure there's anything that JasonZhou can do right now. 4 damage on the board, and a couple of draws here for Lovelychook to pick something up.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. He goes Fan of Knives and hopes to get heal, but I think that's just about all he can do. The backstab is nothing.
Yeah, you always get backstab off of Fan of Knives. Just the rules of the game, apparently. Alright, well, Freezing Trap comes off the top, which means that's not damage. So JasonZhou, one more turn to pick up that heal.
Yeah, that's his only out at the moment is heal bot, assuming he doesn't run any other kind of heal in his deck.
We saw the Earthen Ring Farce here last game as well. So
true.
That is something. But you'd have to clear the board as well. So that's going to be game here. JasonZhou cannot draw a card. I suppose he can backstab his own Shredder, but I guess Vitality. Okay, Vitality Totem can save him.
Oh yeah, of course. Forgotten about that card. Does not get it.
Well, Plays All is out there. Doesn't pick it up, unfortunately. It's about a 1 in 100 at that point. So many 2-drops in Wild. Lovelychook's going to even up the series.
Yeah, so there we see Lovelychook's aggressive Hunter working as a really nice counter pick to the Rogue. Just working exactly as you were saying you thought it would. The fact that the Rogue was just more minion based is going to be punished there because he just has less early removal options. Even though he kept up decently well in the early game, just when the Belchers just weren't enough when Lovelychook drew his mid-game minions like the Lotheb. Just a bit too much for JasonZhou to deal with. So going up against the Hunter again here, he could potentially go for something like his Warrior deck. If it's a Control Warrior, it will line up fairly well against a more aggressive Hunter. Or Patron decks generally do pretty well against aggressive decks too.
Yeah, Patron with all that removal. I kind of want to just review this game we just saw a little bit more. It's kind of funny because it seems like such a strong deck, right? The N'Zoth Miracle Rogue hybrid, but the exact thing that plagued RDU yesterday when we were casting him plagued JasonZhou, in that he had so much value in hand but no removal spells, which is an odd thing to say about Rogue. And even though it seemed like it was going great, just the tempo on the board made sure that JasonZhou was never able to get that out. But it looks like we're looking at a Beast Druid this time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Obviously, the Enchanted Raven is a card that people were kind of predicting might even be good enough to go in a non-Beast Druid, but it turns out the Beast tag is just enough to put it in Beast Druid decks, but in general, Living Roots tends to be a better option. But when you have something like turn 1 Enchanted Raven to follow up with Mark of Yasharaj, that is the perfect starting hand. That's exactly what you're looking for. I,
for one, am looking forward to another 1-mana 2/2 coming up in in Mean Streets of Gadgetzin, the one that heals most blades for 4. I call it Zombie Chow 2.0. I can't even think of the name right now. But
I think it's Mistress of Mixtures.
Mistress of Mixtures. It is absolutely gorgeous for someone who's played a lot of control like me. I mean, I've played a lot of everything at this point, but I started out as a control player. But yeah, as I was looking for the name of that card, Mark of Yasharaj comes onto the Enchanted Raven. Good old Mark of Yasharaj drawing a card so that you can get that damage into the face here. But Savage Roar not doing a whole lot here for JasonZhou.
Yeah, this is really rough. He had such a fantastic starting couple of turns on turn 1 and 2, getting the perfect draws on both pretty much. But here on 3, in these aggressive Druid decks, you can very often go for your Savage Roars in a way that doesn't necessarily give you lethal or give you a huge amount of advantage. But I think here it's just not quite good enough. It would allow him to take out the Mad Scientist with his hero and getting 6 damage to face. So I wouldn't have hated it.
Well,
but
most likely not in that order, right? You get the 6 damage so that you don't get a frozen back. But
yeah.
Well, not killing the Mad Scientist may have worked out here for JasonZhou as Lovelychook picks up yet another secret. We've seen only Freezing and Catrick so far, which are the ones that give you the most tempo overall. Something like Explosive only really works against aggressive decks. And then even if you try to set up some sort of way to clear the opponent's board, they can kind of play around it by just not attacking and maintaining board control that way. Other things come to mind like the Snake Trap, which doesn't get procced if the opponent just goes face. All that kind of stuff. So Yeah, it certainly makes sense for Lovelychook to go for this particular sequence, and he is going to get most likely the freezing trap out of his deck by going for the cat trick first, which says to me that he wants multiple freezing traps this game. Right, because otherwise he would do it the other way around. If he wanted more cat tricks, he would play the freezing trap so that he would get the cat trick out of his deck and then play the second cat trick.
That makes sense a lot to me because, as we can see, given that JasonZhou had a very weak... Oh, it's Snipe. Oh, right, okay.
Oh, I guess he just didn't want to get the cat trick out of his deck, so he wanted to play it right now. So he wanted to get some random spell out of his deck just in case the cat trick gets stranded in his hand.
Of course, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the freezing trap will, I imagine, be getting more value in this game, given that JasonZhou had a very weak turn 3. Lovelychook can assume that he probably has a hand of fairly decent-sized minions. And even though the Lothar comes down here for JasonZhou, it's still a pretty decent turn for Lovelychook, getting out the Mad Scientist to get another secret coming down to further slow his opponent when it dies, and the Glaive Zuka just coming in to get a bit more damage and really start to threaten his opponent.
And this is the power of the cat trick. If you do find yourself ahead on board, having the cat trick in play will mean that it's going to get onto the board and give you tempo back over when your opponent clears it. By the way, fun interaction that we've seen 2 or 3 times over the course of Wild is that when you kill off a Mad Scientist and it pulls off... If you kill off Mad Scientist with a spell and it pulls cat trick, the cat trick will immediately spawn. It's pretty devastating, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, alright, well, Lovelychook has some interesting options in hand. He could choose to ignore this Darnassus Aspirant because, as we do know, the power turn is turn 7, and getting rid of that would still leave JasonZhou with 7 mana, so not sure if there's a difference between 8 and 7 in this case. So you could just push all damage to face, play the Freezing Trap. The Freezing Trap does kind of give your opponent a wild growth, essentially, because the Darnassus doesn't die, but it still prevents it from trading into the board, so I think it's perfectly fine here just to get that minion, prevent that minion from being able to attack. But it is going to attack into it, looks like, here for Lovelychook, just to prevent a larger minion from being able to do that in the future.
Yeah, I guess he's thinking obviously you don't want to be able to give your opponent the free mana crystal and not have the Darnassus Aspirant die, but at the same time just having it activate on something larger like a potential Azure-Drake that could come down. Or even just, I don't know, like getting it on one of the boombots is not the worst because it just will keep your board clear. It very possibly keeps a minion from dying on board. And this is, like, if he doesn't die in the next couple of turns, this is it. He's got, what, 13 just in terms of spells. He can get in 6 with his minions here. Well, which is lethal next turn. Easy.
Going to be hard to not die right now. So it looks like Lovelychook is 1 mana off lethal right now. Gonna go ahead and point the kill command of Phase just so he has the mana in the future potentially. So yeah, you were saying, is there some sort of lethal here going on? So 7, 8, 9. Double Savage Roar would mean that the Boombots are both 5, but one's gonna get frozen back, unfortunately.
One's getting frozen, that's right.
So he has 11 from the Dr. Boom, and then 5 from the Boombot, which is 16. Not quite enough. If he plays the Drew the Claw and freezes back a Boombot, then so he gets 9 from the Dr. Boom, and then 3 from the Boombot, which is 12, and then 6 from the Drew the Claw, which is 18. So not quite enough still. And so yeah, I'm not really seeing it here.
It's so close. It's so close. If that Freezing Trap just wasn't there, the double Savage Roar would be absolutely devastating. But I don't think there's any way that JasonZhou can quite make this work, even with, because the Boombots obviously clearing the minions do nothing. If he went for Savage Roar, there's no way he can make his Boombots die and maybe get in that last 4 damage to the face if that was possible. But
well, because JasonZhou can't find lethal here, he's going to go for as defensive a route as possible. But we do know that Lovelychook does have the quick shot in hand, so that's just going to be game here. In fact, JasonZhou nearly roping out. And yeah, that's going to be it. Lovelychook going to be able to finish out this game. Just too slow of a start here for JasonZhou's Beast Druid. And Lovelychook going to take a 2-1 advantage.
Yeah, it so almost went so well for JasonZhou there. He had such a fantastic turn 1 and turn 2, and if he'd just been able to follow up with something like a Mounted Raptor, if he runs that in his deck, or a Druid of the Flame, then he would have been in such a fantastic position to just capitalize on that turn 2 4/4 that he got down on the board.
Yeah, literally anything.
For him,
Even if it had just been another Enchanted Raven or Druid of Saber, just literally anything to not have dead turns for turns 3 and 4. That's what lost him the game there. And yeah, JasonZhou, those double Saboteurs in hand did not work. And you know that's how I kind of felt too when I was experimenting with Beast Druid when it first came out. Just double Saboteur, you're not always going to have the ability to use it unless you're just playing, a super aggressive token deck. The fact that you can't, Saboteur, the Force of Nature doesn't provide those charges for you anymore means that you're not likely going to get value out of it. And we are going to game number 4 here with now the Hunter versus Hunter. Not exactly a mirror because we saw the camels in JasonZhou's deck, but it does have a 1-2 curve to help him out.
Yeah, we can already see it appears to be a somewhat slower Hunter deck from JasonZhou, obviously with the camels in his deck, and we can see a Sludge Belcher in hand as well here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like a N'Zoth to top it off as well, considering it's a very decent chance he's got Shredders as well. Not quite sure what's happened here. Oh, here we go, just a quick spectator bug. Whew, we're all right.
We're doing okay, though the music is continually turning on and off. But what can you do? All right, so looks like Lovelychook. I think we have our vantage points flipped here. JasonZhou is the one with the Fiery Bat and the Mad Scientist.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so he's okay, we're seeing the same hand on top and bottom. That's why I was confused there. Okay.
Right. Yeah, the hand we see on the bottom here with the Kindly Grandmother is Lovelychook's hand. And JasonZhou has a hand that we cannot see along with the Fiery Bat and the Mad Scientist. So. And this is how powerful Mad Scientist is. It's worth it to freeze him back, even though he's a simple 2-drop. Get that guy out of the way. And
thankfully for JasonZhou, gets a really nice pickup on turn 3 here. The Huffer, it's close. Which one he gets frozen here, to be honest?
Yeah, I think you freeze back the Huffer because you can use that later and for immediate value. 5 mana 4/2 is not too bad as far as frozen back minions go. And if you throw in the Mad Scientist, you're just trading with the Wolf for no actual gain here. I gotta say, I think JasonZhou is a little bit off his game because it seemed like a clear just trade into with the Mad Scientist. Now the Huffer is just gonna trade in, and he has 0 value out of it. And I don't think that 4 mana Mad Scientist. I guess what he's thinking is he has no play here on turn 4, but I feel like getting the secret out of your deck is a bit more valuable, and he actually does pick up a play.
Yeah, it worked out really poorly for him there, and also I suppose he's played a few games now against his opponent's Hunter and hasn't seen any explosive traps, so we can assume it probably is in his deck, so that's why he attacked face there instead with his Mad Scientist. But yeah, getting it frozen and having to play it again on turn 4 here, it would have been just as acceptable to play the Eagle Horn Bow here and have a secret in play. Would have been really nice.
Yeah, well, back over to Lovelychook here. He can go for something like a Glaivezooka to take out this Scientist. He might want to attack in first with his Leok. It's the other, nice play would just be to go for the Shredder on 4, which most decks really just want to do. And he's gonna find out if this is freezing right away. It looks like just to see what he's in for. And does get frozen back, so gonna go ahead and play out his Mad Scientist just for value on the field, but facing down a Belcher into a Highmane, might regret that decision to not put more power on the board this past turn.
Yeah, it's close though, because even if he had decided to go with the Shredder play here and have the secret still active from JasonZhou, the Shredder lines up very poorly against the Sludge Belcher, so he wouldn't necessarily have been in too much of a favourable position here if he had gone for that. It's a bit awkward here now though, because he could go for something like the Kindly Grandmother, attacking with his Glaivezooka and re-equip another one, so that the Mad Scientist is able to take out the front half of the Belcher.
Not in that order, right? So
yes, sorry.
He can also play the Leok for the same sort of trade, but that's a bit too expensive, and having minions on field, especially sticky minions, is nice to have the Leok there after. But gonna go for the Leok right now, surprisingly enough. And JasonZhou, having already seen one freezing trap, means that this is less likely to be freezing trap. And crucially, throughout this back and forth, Lovelychook has taken more damage, which is a big deal in this sort of mirror matchup. And here comes the snipe, but on the very weak snipe there, as it doesn't even kill the first body, and you have to apply 1 damage with, which Hunter is really bad at doing. They're not really good at doing 1 damage. They do damage in 2s or 3s, typically 3s unless you have the Lovelychook. And even after you kill it, the 2 hyenas come out. So again, really poor here. And JasonZhou can potentially start attacking this into the face. I don't believe that was freezing, was it?
No, I think it was Cap Trick.
Right.
But even so, it's obviously that's scary for JasonZhou. He got it off the top, so it's unlikely that it's freezing trap. It's more likely to be the Cat Trick, considering we've already seen 1 freezing trap. Sorry, but he can go for the hounds here to test for the freezing trap and also the Cat Trick as well. And as you were saying, just the fact that Lovelychook has taken a bit more damage in the early game is going to be absolutely massive, because JasonZhou's hand is just all damage now. If he can connect both bow charges to face and a kill command as well, that's it. Or even just next turn, this is mega lethal next turn, unless a Lovelychook can find some way of removing a whole bunch of stuff, which is not looking like he's going to be able to do.
Not just lethal, but mega lethal.
Mega lethal.
I gotta say, I haven't seen the old camel into pull your opponent's 1-drop into unleash the hounds for an extra hound value in quite a while. That was pretty slick by JasonZhou. Really like to see that. And yeah, Lovelychook, not a whole lot of comeback mechanics here. The Lovelychook is removable, but it involves smacking your face into minions, which doesn't really help. And even if he gets a Doomsayer off the Shredder, it's his own Shredder, so there's no incentive. This doesn't clear off any of the board here. Don't see how there's any way for him to get out of this one. I guess he's just thinking, can I make it so that I'm not dead on board? He can trade in his Secret Keeper, trade into the Camel, and the injured Cavaldier. That would leave 6 damage on board. So yeah, he wouldn't actually be that close to dying as far as on board is concerned, but we do see that JasonZhou has ample damage in hand.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for him to play it out. He can obviously bluff a secret here that will maybe make his opponent think that it's a freezing trap, but even so, this is absolutely done.
Yeah, JasonZhou is going to test for the Cat Trick first to see if that comes out here, and that's going to be that confirmation, which means High Main gets the clear to go into the face, the favorite thing for the High Main. He loves nothing more than hitting Illyria. JasonZhou is going to even up this series at 2 games apiece.
Yes, it was really interesting to see in that match as well, just how quickly Hunter can turn a small amount of damage in the early game. Well, I say small. Look, I think it was about 8 or 9 damage that he got in the early turns, while JasonZhou himself was still at 30 health. He can just capitalize that in 2 turns into a huge board state, and he just says, you have to deal with everything on here or you are dead instantly. And obviously, with Hunter having very few comeback mechanics, JasonZhou knew that would very likely take him to victory, which it does end up doing.
Interesting choice in the end, though, to go for that Hunter, because it is a bit of a slower Hunter compared to Lovelychook's. Still able to take the victory, but looking back at going over to Lovelychook's decision coming up here, I feel like he's just gonna likely go for a really fast deck again to counter it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Obviously, the slower hunters can really be punished by that because they don't have that dominant of an early game. Obviously, with the inclusion of Mad Scientist back in now, it becomes a bit more stable, and Kindly Grandmother is obviously a really powerful card, but they have no healing in their deck whatsoever, so going up against a super aggressive deck can be very scary. However, we see Lovelychook going for an extremely unaggressive strategy, going for what looks to be a control priest up against this Hunter. How do you reckon these are going to line up against each other, given that this is a slightly slower Hunter build?
Well, it looks like it is going to be N'Zoth Priest, so I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, to see N'Zoth in JasonZhou's Hunter. It just seems like something you just put in when you have the Shredders and the Belchers in there. And I would imagine that Lovelychook, his deck is a bit slower, and typically the slightly slower decks, the slightly greedier decks, and just sort of matchup wins. The extremes of each side typically win, right? If you go for a faster, aggressive deck, then you typically win out that one, and so is the opposite case. And so, yeah, typically Lovelychook would be favored in this matchup, especially because his hero power negates that of JasonZhou. However, JasonZhou has a pretty nice starting hand here, whereas Lovelychook has some awkward pieces.
Yeah, it's really tough. If he had something like a circle to go with the Orkney, it'd be a bit better to clear up some of the stuff that JasonZhou can play here, because obviously it lines up really well against the Leok that he got here, and it would also be able to clear out the Camel and the one drop that it would pull from the deck. The Zombie Chow isn't bad here. Obviously, it's a bit late, and he's going to play it just to get it out on the board and start fighting back. But he really would have liked to have it a couple of turns earlier, because if he could have got something like a Velen's Chosen off on it, he'd be looking in a really powerful spot to take the board. And if the Hunter can't get in some of that early to mid damage, they might really struggle when it gets into the late game, and Priest can drop all kinds of stuff like Light Bomb and Entomb to deal with anything that the Hunter can play.
Super awkward turn here for JasonZhou, because if he plays the Camel, he's likely pulling a Northshire Cleric, and he cannot kill it off right away. We might just see a kill command on a Zombie Chow here.
I suppose it depends on how he envisions this matchup going, because obviously if he wants to finish out the game as quick as possible, he wants to save something like the kill command just to go to his opponent's face, and he might not care so much about pulling a Northshire from his opponent's deck, because he's going to try and pummel him down as quick as possible. And he does think that that's the best strategy for him here. Doesn't want to use a deadly shot or a kill command to take out the Zombie Chow, considering it's not threatening his board too much, given his board state and the attack buffs he gets from Leok.
JasonZhou, unfortunately for him, does not get the injured Cavaldier, instead gets the Fiery Bat here. You know, typically this would put Lovelychook in a reasonable spot. Even something like, you know, Circle of Healing would have helped him out here, even without the Arcanine, just to get lots of card draw for himself. On the side of Lovelychook, he wants to take care of this board, but feels like you're not getting a whole lot done by just slamming an Arcanine on the field for board control. He could just go for attacking in with one of his minions and healing it up, so he has more options going forward, and follow up his next turn with Arcanine Flash Shield. That does save the remaining Arcanine in his hand for future turns where he can Arcanine Circle. So I do, even though this is very slow by Lovelychook, I do like his play here, and yeah, he's going to go ahead and trade into the Fiery Bats. This goes face. That's pretty reasonable for Lovelychook's side, which means that the Camel has to be the one that chases the Zombie Chow.
Yeah, and this means that cards like the Holy Nova in Lovelychook's hand are starting to look a bit more promising, obviously with two health minions on the board from JasonZhou. He's got a really tough couple of turns, like for example, here he could go for the...
You can Shadow Word Death the Shredder, the Dream. For attack minion no more, you can go for the Shadow Word Death. No, it looks like it's
always
gonna...
happens. Every cast, I'll be talking about something, I'll be halfway through a sentence, and I'll just hear you chuckling away at something that's just been drawn. And then I have to go on, hand it over to you. What are you memeing about this time?
Sorry. I do love to meme, I can't lie. Alright, so JasonZhou, he doesn't really want to play out this Mad Scientist because it can get toned by the Cabal Shadow Priest. That said, this might be the best chance for him to get it out, because otherwise you're going to be... I mean, the longer the game goes, the more likely you're going to be facing the Cabal Shadow Priest. But just having the Shredder on the board, it's possible, since this is Priest, that there's nothing for Lovelychook to do here other than play out a lonely Cabal Shadow Priest, so that's what JasonZhou is considering. Instead of Lovelychook, he can play the Justicar right now to set up for future turns, but he's facing a lot of damage, so it looks like he's just going to go for a clear onto the Shredder, using his hero power.
Yeah, I like this a lot. It could obviously have been a potential snipe from JasonZhou if he's playing that. He might not be going for that, because it looks like he's going for a less secret build. He might not be playing the Cloaked Huntress in this deck, considering it seems to be a slower, more mid-range Hunter potentially. I almost said Shaman now. Whenever I say the word mid-range, just Shaman just comes out instinctively afterwards now.
Just flashes in your right. No, not again.
Not like this.
Well, Lovelychook, he can Shadow Word Death. What he can also do is go for something weird like Flash Heal and test to see if this is Catrick, and if it is, he can Light Bomb.
Yep, very true. That would work out really nicely for him. He potentially won't get too much more value out of the Light Bomb here, so if he can clear up almost an entire board and leave his Orkney healthy, it would have been quite nice.
Yeah, I think he's still going to Light Bomb, because this is just too much damage on field. It's only 5, but you're only at 19, and you have an Arcanine that you need to get rid of pretty quickly here, so we are going to see the Light Bomb. Since he does have another in hand, he also has the Justicar to stabilize or have it be a nuke option, as Dr. Boom comes right on time. Is it turn 7, Derek? Because I see a Dr. Boom coming into the hand.
Yeah, you know, really heads-up play there from JasonZhou. He looked at the number of mana crystals he had. He recognized that number as 7. He looked at the number of mana crystals that Dr. Boom cost to play and decided it was time to play it. Really nicely played from him there.
Well, Lovelychook has another light bomb in hand. I imagine if he does go for that, probably wants to freeze back his Akanai first. He's eliminated almost everything here. The only thing he hasn't eliminated are the attack options, so it doesn't know if it's Misdirection, Explosive, Snake, or Bear. Has already tested for Dart, Cat Trick, and Snipe, and so most likely going to be the freezing. The only issue with freezing your Akanai right now is you're getting an extra bow charge to JasonZhou, so perhaps he favors the extra health on his face over having a 6-mana Akanai in the future, as well as the situation where your opponent doesn't have the freezing in play anymore.
Yeah, the freezing could potentially be quite messy against some of the things that Lovelychook might want to play. If he plays a Sylvanas, it's extremely unlikely at this point that his opponent will trade into it ever. So if he pays 6 mana to play a minion, have it frozen, then have to play 8 mana to play it again on a following turn, that's just way too slow to even really considering being playing at this point, considering he's under a decent amount of pressure.
Ooh, okay. Alright, so 5. The first one was 1, second one was 4, so pretty average there for the boom bots. Data average out there. Pretty nice pickup here for JasonZhou. Can put out this Sludge Belcher. This might be time for him to put out the Mad Scientist, because even if the Cabal comes out, he does have quite a bit of damage. But favors the hero power instead. Certainly can make an argument for that just because... Ooh, Deathlord picked up here for Lovelychook. That's pretty huge. But for JasonZhou's side, Lovelychook is getting pretty low. Has a bit of burst damage in hand. But Lovelychook could also just go for something like Sylvanas and death his own Sylvanas to take the Sludge Belcher here, if he so chooses. We do see that the Deadly Shot will be pretty devastating. Did we see Deadly Shot last game? Did we see Deadly Shot last game? We saw it from in the last series. I don't believe we saw it from JasonZhou, so Lovelychook might not play around Deadly Shot here.
That's very true. I don't think we did see it. Basically, the one thing he wants to not do at all is just get up a Deathlord, and maybe something like Velen's chosen it, because then the Deadly Shot would be absolutely massive. He wants to leave it at like maximum of 50-50 for the Deadly Shot to hit the Deathlord. So I can respect this play. Although I wouldn't have hated the Sylvanas into death either, because it is activating your Sylvanas in an effective way when it's very unlikely you'll get value out of it, considering there's still a freezing trap in play.
So JasonZhou is 1 mana off of 50-50 lethal here, I'm counting. Because he can Deadly Shot, and if it hits the Deathlord, although he could get a Charger, so this could be lethal. Does get the Deathlord, it's pretty huge. Only gets a Gavaldir though. And now if he plays the Glaive Zuka and it buffs up the Sludge Belcher, that's an extra 3 damage on the field.
Yeah, and then can't do hero power and the kill command. It's getting very, very close though.
Right.
Lovelychook is going to have to find...
He did hit both 50-50s, although he didn't, if he had put the Glaive Zuka first, he didn't have to hit that particular 50-50, but... Again, he was 1 mana off of hitting a 50-50 for lethal there, but Sludge Belcher comes out for Lovelychook, an absolutely huge draw for him. He's going to be able to Valen's Chosen this up, no more Deadly Shot in the hand of JasonZhou, and he's going to be able to heal his face for 4 here.
And, well, just unfortunately for him though, the kill command with the hero power and beast in hand is just going to be enough to take this game, even through the taunt.
Yeah, no beast on the field here, but so Lovelychook probably feels like he's safe, but he doesn't know that the beast in hand plus the kill command is going to do it here. Even picks up another beast for a good measure. So JasonZhou is going to continue his winning ways, and finish out this game in style. Kill command to the face, and going to take a 3-2 advantage.
Yeah, it worked out really nicely for JasonZhou in the end there. He navigated, I think, very well in the early game, making sure that he didn't utilize too much of his burn when he could have done it like deadly shotting or kill commanding the zombie chow to solidify his board advantage, instead developing minions of his own, which I like a lot. He's
calling someone. It's like
yeah, he's asking.
Wait,
I did it, Mum. I did it.
How much damage is kill command again? Well, in the meantime, I guess I'll just continue on solo. We'll see what Lovelychook decides to pick to go off against this Hunter. Did not work last time with the Priest. Looks like he's going to go for a more aggressive deck. This time in the Zoolock here. Let's see if this works a bit better for him. Hello, Derek?
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, you're in the cast.
Brilliant.
Say hello to the viewers.
Hello, everybody.
Well, we have Zoo picked up here for Lovelychook to try to combat this. May have a better chance at it, especially since the camels take out your own minions as well. I'm gonna go ahead and give you that screen share.
Thank you very much.
And Lovelychook looks like is choosing between these 3 minions. Seems like a clear. Well, Malchazar's Imp might not be a clear choice if he isn't running any sort of discard effects, but you imagine he is running at least the Doom Guards. And even though he played the Dark Pillar out in the field to make that proposition of the damage from the Firebat go off be a 1 and 3, did not work out for him.
Yeah, unfortunately not working out for him perfectly there, but as you said, I think the Malchazar's Imp is a really good choice. The potential upside is so massive, and the 1/3 for 1 is a perfectly decent body in its own right, especially with all the buffs that Zoo can get its hands on. And so for here we see a potentially really big turn for Lovelychook. The roll here that he will get on the implosion if he decides to go for it could massively affect the course of the game.
Yeah, Leok was absolutely horrible there, by the way. If he was able to take out the Malchazar's Imp with a Helfer, for instance, and this would prevent Lovelychook, or it would make him less likely to go for this play where he tries to get the egg off, because otherwise you would want to attack in with your Malchazar's Imp to test for that freezing trap. But instead, he does pop the cat trick, so there is something. The silver lining here for JasonZhou, but yeah, falling a little bit behind the board, has the catch-up potential in the Unleash the Hounds, but he's just gonna go for the value trade onto the Malchazar's Imp, and this is pretty interesting because JasonZhou's thinking that if the Haunted Creeper trades into his Cat in the Hat, then JasonZhou has a bit of a better Unleash the Hounds to eat him out, and then he can utilize the Hunter's Mark at that point. So going to looking toward the future here, and also a bit concerned about going into turn 5 when a Doom Guard is a possibility.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it appears I'm having some small Skype issues and your voice is cutting out a lot for me, so I believe I will leave you for 1 minute while I try and sort this out.
Alright, looks like it's a solo cast for this game. Alright, so back over to Lovelychook, most likely going to play out the Loatheb and figure it out from there. I suppose it's possible he goes for the implosion to help himself out over the Loatheb. There's no real reason to go for the Powerful Loving unless he wants to take a value trade. Unfortunately, this is going to get frozen back. Speaking of the Nerubian Egg. So, I'm going to go ahead and take the value trade there. Doesn't mind, it seems like, getting a 6-mana Nerubian into his hand. Was that nerfed? I feel like... Oh, I remember that nerf. That nerf came out after Standard came out, so no one remembers it. So the nerf I'm referring to is that Nerubian actually used to be a 3-mana minion. It used to be a 3-mana 4/4 after it came off the egg. And so even if it got frozen back, you'd still have a 5-mana 4/4. But it looks like it's turned into a 4-mana 4/4, which is pretty significant right now. By the way, that Loatheb, lots of value there, freezing out all of Jason's turn, just able to only get an attack in, and his hero power there. So, gonna be the implosion coming out. Rolls of 4, which is somewhat inconsequential because JasonZhou does have the Unleash the Hounds to counteract that. Picks up a Shredder, but can't play that right yet because wants to use the Hunter's Mark right here onto the Loatheb. JasonZhou could actually push a lot of damage to face here rather than clearing out the entire board. I wouldn't be too surprised to see that. Could get punished by something like Defender of Argus. And he's looking at his kill command, but I feel like this is a good time to go for the Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark and Katrick seems pretty good here, but no, he's going to favor going for the kill command instead, and perhaps save that Hunter's Mark for a rainier day. And going to clear the entire board. Alright, so JasonZhou opting for board control, but that's not going to work out too well with Dr. Boom hitting the field. Even if JasonZhou uses his Hunter's Mark, there's still going to be a couple of Boombots terrorizing him. And behind that, Lovelychook has Darkshire Councilman and the Defender of Argus to help him out as well. So even though JasonZhou is putting out some pretty large minions for his side, still not likely to take the board anytime soon. Alright, Lovelychook needs to figure out what this secret is. We do know that it is the the cat trick. Probably a bit worried about the freezing trap. He can test with one and use the boom bot along with the abusive sergeant on the other and fill out this curve with the Darkshire Councilman and Defender of Argus. He would lose 1 damage on one of his boom bots that way, but worth it to test out the secret before he does anything rash. And is going to go for that play and killing off this Shredder right here. It does make a slight sequencing error. Could have gone for the Darkshire Councilman first in order to get that a bit buffed up. Obviously, you kind of want to see what comes out of the Shredder first, so not necessarily a sequencing error, because if this is a Doom Shredder, you won't really play anything at all. There also is the fear of something like Mana Rays, but now that he's playing it out, it's going to be... Alright, so... well, just going to go ahead and push face, realizing that, okay, well, you deal with my boom bots. I'm just going to have these on the field right now. And Derek, are you on the call right now?
Your beautiful dulcet tones are coming through crystal clear.
Awesome. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and share that screen for you. So,
brilliant, thank you.
Both players have been trying to grab the board until this last turn when Lovelychook puts a little bit of damage to face. But he is being met by a Sludge Belcher at this point. But yeah, JasonZhou still only at 12 health. It's going to be difficult for him to hold on here. Lovelychook knows that this isn't freezing trap, by the way. I'm going to find out very soon that it is the cat trick.
It's interesting because the Sludge Belcher in this matchup can be really nice at staving off some of the aggression, even if you are low on health. Because obviously Zhou has a very small amount of damage that can go through Taunt directly. But here the Sludge Belcher is going to die, and then we're just left with Lovelychook having a decent board of minions and plenty of health to tap into all the threats he could want.
Yep, doesn't even need to tap this turn. Plays a 6 mana Nerubian out in the field, and yeah, do you remember, by the way, the nerf on the Nerubian? It used to be 3 mana, now it's 4 mana, so now it costs 6 mana off of the freezing trap. Anyway,
is that true? Oh.
Yeah, it used to cost 3 mana. I am 99.99% sure that used to be the case. But alright, Jason's actually doing a reasonable job clearing off this board here, but that doesn't change the fact that he's at 6 health facing a Zhou that can just tap into a bunch of damage here. Picks up the Knife Juggler, does Lovelychook as well as that Shredder, and Shredder notoriously difficult to get through.
Yeah, it's going to be doing a really good job at just trying to wrestle back this board damage. If he can find a way of dealing with the ooze here, the Shredder lines up really nicely against the two 4s that we see on the board for JasonZhou here. But even outside of that, if JasonZhou can't find some way of dealing with this, we're just seeing lethal from Lovelychook here.
So JasonZhou's going to trade in first to make sure that the Knife Juggler doesn't get any value. Follow it up with the trade onto the Shredder. Hopefully he can kill off what's remaining. But it is a Nerubian egg, which is bad for Lovelychook because that means that JasonZhou gets to push damage face. He already had a Nerubian egg for value as far as being able to buff up a minion. Just wanted some damage. And Implosion is the pickup here for Lovelychook. Let's see if he wants to go for a 9 mana Implosion. Will make his board very wide, and he's already seen one Unleash the Hound, so very unlikely for JasonZhou to deal with it. And if it does roll a 4, it's extremely good, because after pushing 1 damage, JasonZhou would only be able to deal with 2 of those 4 and leave 3 damage on the board, signaling almost lethal here for Lovelychook. He's just going to push it onto the Loatheb and kill off
I guess he's just
Camel. So if he did roll a 4 there, then he would have been able to take out the Loatheb, but instead takes out one of the minions on the field, playing the board game here, which is, I feel like JasonZhou would have done the same thing in return.
Yeah, I imagine you're probably right. It's hard because it feels almost as if like Lovelychook, doesn't have to really think about too much about how he's going to handle this because he'll have lethal no matter what. But it's all of a sudden looking very close. JasonZhou threatening his own lethal here, unless Lovelychook can pick up the exact 1 damage he needs to finish off the game.
Yeah, that last play for JasonZhou going face there was, I believe, correct. That was the only way he was going to win if he pushed for 2-turn lethal at that moment. And if he removed 2 minions off the board, then he was still at 5. Yeah, there was no... Like, 1 is basically 2 in that situation, because Direwolf Alpha is still 2, Beast Sergeant obviously 2. There's no real way to buff 1. All other things come to mind are Defender of Argus. So at that point, just kind of push the face and hope that your opponent improbably doesn't pick up any damage. He was able to pick it up there, was Lovelychook. So that leaves us at a 3-3 tie. With JasonZhou having just had his Hunter taken care of.
So, yeah, JasonZhou's got a whole bunch of ways that he could consider dealing with this Zoo lock that he's facing now. He does decide to go with the mid-range Shaman that we can see here. In the modern standard lineups that we see, the mid-range Shaman against Zoo tends to go in the mid-range Shaman's favor due to cards that we've seen especially recently, like Spirit Claws and Maelstrom Portal, really solidifying the matchup. But given that this is wild format, the Zoo deck can be a lot stickier and a lot harder to deal with and resistant to the board clear cards that we could see from JasonZhou. So he's really going to be looking for cards, as we see here, like the Totem Golem, to fight back for his own board control with his really powerful early drop minions.
Yeah, like you mentioned, this matchup is completely flipped. It used to be very variable for the Zoo. But with the addition to the Shaman arsenal and the subtraction from the Zoo side, it makes it so that that made the Shaman able to be favored. But in this particular case, because you get some of the options back here for the Zoo, including those Nubian eggs, which prevent easy board clears from the Shaman, it's kind of puts it back towards that even mark. So not a slam dunk pick here for JasonZhou, but still pretty reasonable. By the way, with the coin of the Nubian egg out, makes sense for JasonZhou not to play into that. If there was a powerful whelming, who would have gotten blown out with that onto his Totem Golem, so it makes sense for him to not do that quite yet. He does have the Earthshock in hand, which pairs very well with the Wrath of Air Totem that he just picked up here. So this next turn is going to be excellent here. Gonna go for the Totem Golem and the clean kill onto the egg.
Yeah, the spell power is working out fantastically here. Obviously, usually the spell power works best with cards like Spirit Claws or the Lightning Storm here, but including the Earthshock in his deck is working out really nicely for him, potentially just for a scenario exactly like this. This will be one of the scenarios he's got in his mind when he decided to put that card into his deck.
Yeah, and JasonZhou might elect to just clear out this board right now. Doesn't have a great option to deal with it, but does instead to elect for the Totem Golem. I suppose he figures he's dealt with one egg. There's not too much else for him to worry about. The Haunted Creeper is not too big of a deal to leave a couple of 1/1s behind. So gonna save this Lightning Storm for a rainier day in the future.
Yeah, I can respect that. And he's got a very nice follow-up on the following turn with the one overload. He has access to the Shredder, which will hopefully be able to help him wrestle back some more of this board control. Or if he decides that the board has gotten completely out of hand, he has the option just to go for the Lightning Storm on the following turn when Lovelychook has committed more minions to it.
Alright, so first blood here for Lovelychook onto JasonZhou's face. Obviously the 3 onto onto Lovelychook were his own damage from the Flame Imp here. So
yeah,
as you can see, JasonZhou, just with the threat of totems onto the board, has prevented any damage coming to his face. So if he can just gradually take back the board here, there's going to be no real way for Lovelychook to burst him down, even with Leroy Jenkins in hand.
Yeah, and he's got some pretty nice cards here. The Fire Elemental is really nice just to be able to take out something, maybe even get the full 3 damage worth out of the Battle Cry. The Vitality Totem is not what JasonZhou was looking for there, unfortunately. At this point, he's less concerned with his health and more concerned with just aggressively fighting back for that board control. So if we were later on in the game, perhaps that would have been nice. But yeah, not exactly what he was looking for here. He was looking for something to combo with his Fire Elemental to get a much clearer board on the following turn.
Yeah, only going to heal him for 3 right now, whereas another minion would have healed him for 3 and taken some damage off the board in the meantime. Lovelychook, I wonder what he's considering here. Perhaps he's thinking about playing Leroy because this might be the best time to do it with a Void Color in the way, but you'd be really opening yourself up to Lightning Storm in that situation. Still opens up to Lightning Storm, but has the Leroy in his back pocket for future turns. The way that JasonZhou has played it, yeah, he's already reaching for the Fire Elemental. Not even concerned about Lightning Storm right now. Can just use that in future turns. Ideally in 2 turns when the Drake Lightning Storm combo is up, and just has these massive minions in his hand to continue the beatdown and continue just having the board over Lovelychook here.
Yeah, I think I like going for the fire elemental a lot here, because if he had decided to go for something like the lightning storm right there, he's not necessarily guaranteed to kill all the minions anyway, and then he can't go for the fire elemental on the following turn. And the fire elemental is really nice because it's a big minion, but it's also proactive. It's going to be taking something off the board so that his health total is not going to be looking too scary all of a sudden. And now going into the following turns, as you said, he will have access to something like the Azure Drake into Lightning Storm combo to take out any 3 or 4 health minions that Lovelychook will be playing.
Alright, JasonZhou probably wants a Stoneclaw Totem here. Does only pick up the Searing Totem, probably the worst option, especially if he has 2 health, or excuse me, 2 attack was going to take out these minions anyway. So yeah, just putting an annoying minion onto the board here, which is nice in front of Lovelychook's coming turn for the Dr. Boom. It means that, you know, Lovelychook either has to expend effort dealing with the board, or he plays the Dr. Boom. It looks like he opts for the latter. No surprise, Dr. Boom just get that guy onto the field. And there is not a potential clear, but there's a near clear if the 4 goes onto the Dr. Boom. It's going to be... oh, no, just kidding. Hex off the top. Just
really nice
kidding. Who
Wow.
needs Lightning Storm when you can hex the largest minion on the field? The one thing that Lovelychook can possibly look forward to take this game is the fact that JasonZhou cannot heal. There's no healing in his deck unless he gets another Shredder and gets another Vitality Totem. Or he's running Healbot for some reason. Which I guess is a possibility, but not a guarantee by any means. So that's the one thing that Lovelychook could elect to do, is just push a lot of damage right now. Obviously, it's very scary to do so.
Yeah, I think I can understand why he'd want to do that. He has Burst in his deck. We've seen Power Overwhelming's in his deck, and he's very likely running the Doom Guard. It's rare for Zoo decks to not do that at the moment. But we did see the Leroy in his deck, I suppose, which traditionally sometimes you'd think you either go for the Leroy or the Doom Guard. So that might be a tell as to the fact that he's not running Doom Guards. So the Burst in his deck might be limited somewhat.
Yeah, in particular, if you're running Leroy, there's an old school deck that runs double PO, double Soulfire Leroy. But JasonZhou, under a lot of pressure here, feels like he needs to Lightning Storm right now. Does not want that hit-to-hit phase because he was going to be trading with the Loath anyway. And all of a sudden, the game that looks like it was JasonZhou's to lose, that Loath turn from Lovelychook prevents JasonZhou from getting a significant turn off. And this is all of a sudden very possible for Lovelychook.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so close because obviously he has no cards in hand now, but his life tap will help him. He's got a really high life total to be tapping a lot with as well. And although JasonZhou has a really nice hand, as it would be in lots of matchups going into the late game, he just needs ways of dealing with anything that Lovelychook can play. So he's going to be looking for stuff like taunts in the things from below, Lightning Storm, Maelstrom, Portal, just anything he can find to stem the aggression, because if the game does carry on, he will win eventually.
Implosion off the top, this is pretty huge, only rolls for the 2. Now Lovelychook has a decision to make here. Now, if he had taken care of that, it would have been really nice to Argus up this egg and start attacking in. The only issue is that, now he is going to Argus the egg and actually attack into it just to get the damage onto the field right now so he can finish out the game as quickly as possible. He realized, oh, and that's the thing from below. He realized the last game that, or the last turn, excuse me, that there was no removal in JasonZhou's hand. Was forced to use the Hex onto the Knife Juggler. And, you know, already one Urshock down, already the... already both hexes down as well, so that's something that he's considered.
It's a good point.
Alright, a Taunt Totem would be absolutely huge here. Taunt Totem and into the thing from below, put the Flame Tongue Totem there as well. He could also elect to go for Totem thing from below Rag and try to get a high roll here.
Yeah, he has, obviously, the Nerubian is the best target, but getting off the 2 damage of the Defender of Argus would not be bad at all either. He basically has a 2 out of 3 for a pretty good shot, and then a 1 out of 3 for a pretty good shot, and a 2 out of 3 for a pretty bad shot.
Once he missed with the totem, it's best to go for the Rag here.
Okay,
let's see what he gets. He gets the second best option. If he had gotten the Taunt Totem, it's better to put the Flame Tongue Totems up. Is that okay? So 2, 3, 4 damage onto the phase here for Lovelychook, if he wants to go that route. Looks like just go for the easy trade onto, or utilizing, excuse me, the Nerubian. And this Shredder is yet more trouble here for the Rag, because hitting the Shredder doesn't really help you a whole lot. And
yeah, definitely.
Wow.
And
I'm gonna go for the trade here as well. Okay, I guess that removes the opportunity for the Flame Tongue Totem to help out.
yeah, and lowers the chance of a Stoneclaw Totem being rolled as well if that were to save him. But no chance for JasonZhou there, he thinks.
That was an interesting game to say the least. After a few turns, it just seemed like, you know, it was inevitable that Lovelychook was going to run out of gas and JasonZhou was going to take the advantage. But all of a sudden, that Loatheb just causing so much trouble, making it so that JasonZhou had to clear the board and had to use an 8-mana Lightning Storm, really negate, you know, taking away the tempo there. I guess, to be perfectly, you know, complete in the analysis, it was a Doctor Boom into the Loatheb, right?
Yeah, okay.
That extra damage.
Yeah, we're just seeing the power level of some of the cards that we'd kind of forgotten about being more standard players. But yeah, that was just a showcase of Loatheb being so brutally powerful. Because even though after the turn Loatheb was dropped, we very possibly could have seen a Lightning Storm anyway. We would have seen it in combination with the Drake, perhaps, which would have gotten more damage to remove more stuff, and also developed a body at the same time to fight back against the board. But it was just a bit too much, and even though JasonZhou was looking very close to stabilizing, the amount of refill that Zhou can get with the life tap was just too much at the end there. So unfortunate for JasonZhou. However, he is looking to counteract this Zhou deck with his own N'Zoth Priest that we see here. And this can suffer, I think, from the same thing that the mid-range Shamans suffered from against this more old-school Zhou deck, because they have a whole bunch of board sweeps that they can put in their deck, like the Wild Pyromancer we see. They can go for Organized Circle combo, Holy Nova, Excavated Evil, Light Bomb, all the board sweep options they could ever want. But considering how hard the Zhou minions are to remove, like we see the Possessed Villager and the Haunted Creeper already in play, it might just not be effective enough at slowing down the Zhou enough before it gets in the amount of damage it needs in the early game, and then finishing off with the burst of Leroy Jenkins at the end.
Yeah, that's why you typically need to see your own, you know, overpowered options, like, you know, the Deathlord and the Sludge Belcher to get in the way and kind of force more minions on the board, force the, you know, buffs. And if you're buffing a minion that just dies, then you're getting rid of it that way. And if you're buffing a Death Rattle, then you get rid of the Death Rattle so that you can kill the body that goes afterwards. So it's really incumbent on Jason to pick up the Deathlord or the Sludge Belcher to help him out here.
Yeah, that would be really, really helpful for him. It is looking at the moment, though, like he's going to be able to potentially get off a really nice Wild Pyromancer here in combination with the 3 cheap spells he's got in his hand. He might even be able to pop the first half of the Haunted Creeper and then use a spell to sweep up the 2 1/1s at the same time, just being able to potentially completely clear Lovelychook's board, even though a lot of his minions are Death Rattles.
It is pretty expensive, though, to use 3 spells.
Of course.
The Flash Shield, the Coin and the Powered Shield, obviously not too big of a deal. But the Flash Shield is something that you might want to save for removal along with that with the Alkanite later. But I do imagine he's going to go for that power. Ooh, that's a card. That helps quite a bit.
That's a massive card. This is so fantastic for JasonZhou because, as you were saying, he is very expensive. But because he's got 2 draw cards, just the cycle cards in Power Word Shield now, he doesn't even care necessarily that he's using all these cards to sweep the board because Lovelychook is massively slowed down. He's committed pretty much his whole game into this board, his whole early game, into this board that's just being swept up. And then all of a sudden, JasonZhou has got a whole bunch of options. He can use the Organized Soul Priest in combination with the Flash Heal to take out any decent-sized minion that Lovelychook plays. Or he can slam the Velen's Chosen onto the Wild Pyromancer here, which will keep it healthy, and then it can keep getting board sweeps, which can be so devastating against the Zhou.
Yeah, we were calling the last game a little bit early, but it seems like this one is pretty much over, especially because there's no real out for Lovelychook. There's healing. I mean, the heal hero power here from JasonZhou just to make sure that there's really no out for Lovelychook, in combination with the fact that Flash Shield just that extra burst healing. And now the Deathlord coming out just to finish things up, and I don't think that Lovelychook can get out of this one. He can Leroy Power Overwhelming and get to this Deathlord, but you're using 2 cards to get probably a weenie out of your deck, and that's not really what you want to see. Looks like he's going to take care of this Pyromancer first. If this rolls a 2, that's certainly over. Does get the 3 at the very least here. But yeah, the beats just keep rolling for JasonZhou. Picks up a Sylvanas right at the top here.
He's just got everything he could want at this point. If it does somehow get out of control, he can go for a light bomb to sweep up the board. But it doesn't even look like he's going to need that, because at the moment it feels like with his minions and perhaps the Orkanai hero power and flash heal, he can remove anything that Lovelychook is going to play, even without going for a big board sweep turn like with the light bomb that we see in hand.
Alright, question. What do you corruption here? I think you corruption the Sylvanas, because that's going to be an issue if you ever take care of this Deathlord. But no, just go for the Deathlord instead.
I can see his reasoning, because obviously you have to get through this if you're going to win the game, and he doesn't want to commit a minion and a power overwhelming into it. So you can see where he's coming from, but I wouldn't have hated either, to be honest. It's not a great play either way, to be honest, because they both still get a turn of sweeping up minions, which is basically the reason that he's playing them anyway.
Yeah, in the end, there's not a whole lot that Lovelychook can win this game. So it looks like JasonZhou's just going to go ahead and try to get the biggest board possible. Harrison comes down. This will be information for Lovelychook in the future if JasonZhou does win this game, as
Very
Defender
true.
Vargas comes onto the field here. The light bomb in hand just means that JasonZhou, I don't think there's any way that Lovelychook can come back. He has a bit of burst in hand, obviously that 10 there, along with the 4 on board, but that's not nearly 23, needs an extra 9 somehow, some way.
Yeah. Yeah, this also, the fact that JasonZhou does have the N'Zoth in hand means that even though he's only had a couple of Death Rattle minions in the Deathlord and the Sylvanas, it will be enough pressure, I believe, to make sure that Lovelychook cannot just keep tapping for however many turns and build up a whole massive board that potentially can refill even after the light bomb, because he's just not going to have time, because there's a decent amount of pressure coming from JasonZhou already, and the N'Zoth will just solidify that, I think.
I think that this is a slight error in order here, because you would rather give a higher chance at an imp than the
So you
defensive
implosion
Argus.
first. Yeah,
Right.
I think you're right. And yeah, it's plays like that, because even though it's extremely unlikely that Lovelychook is able to take the game, it's going to be stuff like that, like the potential of giving your opponent the 2-3 rather than the 1-1 just edges away. It just lowers his small percentage chance of being able to take this game back.
So JasonZhou doesn't have the cleanest of turns here. There's no, it's just not like I clear this board, I heal this minion, and get along with my day. Everything's nice and tidy. It's kind of like, well, I'm getting rid of a Harrison, which I kind of want to keep, or I'm using the Orkanai, but then I have her on the board, so I can't really heal. I don't feel really too great about that. He does have 7 burst damage, so combined with the 6 on the board, that would be quite a lot. To start finishing up the game. Looks like he's going to opt towards going for this Valence Chosen to start cleaning up this board here. Nice little 3-5 Imp just to help things out here. Going to heal up this Harrison Jones. Going to float a bit of mana, but that's okay, as we have a bit of issues with the clean feed. Hopefully this isn't a long-term thing. Okay.
Oh yeah, the screen share has been frozen. I'm on the clean feed here, and I can still see it's still moving along for me. All right, but here we go, back in action. And so for Lovelychook here, he is picking up some decent-sized minions. Stuff like the Lotheb are obviously nice because they're towards the higher end of your deck. The fact that he's not running Doom Guards, as well, we can assume he's not running Doom Guards from the fact that he's running Lotheb, and he's been hesitant to pick cards like the Malchezaar's Imp with the Dark Peddler that we saw at the start of the game. He chose the Flame Imp over it, which I didn't comment on at the time, but it means I think he's very unlikely to be running Doom Guards. Just means his top decks are severely limited in their individual power level.
Yeah, well, Lovelychook looks like he's making his last push here, just kind of flooding the board. He does, again, we've been calling him out, but he does have one last push in him, and that involves the Lotheb in hand. If you can somehow kind of Jedi mind trick JasonZhou into not clearing his board, and he plays the Lotheb next turn, then Light Bomb cannot be played, and perhaps he can make a push afterward.
Yeah, that does look like that would have been his only out, but however, the flash heal just so perfectly targeting the Darkshire Councilman here, and even if the Lotheb is dropped here, it's just not that much pressure on the board, even in combination with the Leroy, because JasonZhou will just be able to clear up the board really effectively, purely with minion damage on the following turn, and if he wants to, he can just go for a N'Zoth here of his own, get up a big old Taunt and a Sylvanas, which will be really threatening against some of the bigger minions that we are seeing from Lovelychook here.
Alright, we're finally going to see the Lotheb come down here, and like you mentioned, it's not going to be too big of a deal. I think we're finally getting to the point where if JasonZhou does clear this board, then he's not going to trade any longer. There have been outside events, like 2-turn lethals, that JasonZhou could have died to if he went aggressive.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's looking like it's not going to be possible anymore. So JasonZhou can clear off the Imp King boss, play the... Oh no, he's just going to go for N'Zoth. I was looking at the Pyromancer plus 8 mana death to clear things out, but just wants to get
not even necessary.
Yeah, just get a larger board here. And now Lovelychook has to deal with this mess all over again, and I don't think there's any way for him to deal with it.
Yeah, he gave it a valiant effort on the first time, but obviously Zhou just not able to come back from a ridiculous board state like that so late in the game. So that is going to be Lovelychook's Zhou down, so across of his Warlock, and now that is the N'Zoth Priest left from JasonZhou. So I wonder what he's going to be, Lovelychook is going to be playing to counteract this. He could go for something like the Rogue, which has traditionally done fairly well against Priest, or maybe something like, I don't know, the Shaman, which just does pretty well against everything. What do you think we're going to be seeing here?
Well, it's tricky because you have to take Priest seriously in Wild. I talked about with this with A-Bar in the last series, and it's a pretty solid deck, at least here too in Wild, because of all the removal options it has in conjunction with just powerful minions that you can bring back with the N'Zoth. So gonna have to take this seriously. Is Lovelychook not just gonna play out some random strong deck, and he is going to opt for the Rogue. This did not work last time, if I remember correctly, in the prior series, as Rogue does have to deal with quite a lot of annoying minions on the side of the Priest, and the Priest has ample removal for the side of the Rogue. However, he has Cold Blood. Okay, so we might see a standard Rogue here rather than the Miracle N'Zoth hybrid that we're used to seeing. That said, the Shredder comes in hand to complicate things a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the Oil Rogue that we saw before Blade Flurry was nerfed, the Shredder was running that in most decks, at least one of them. It was debatable whether you put in more Shredders or more Violet Teachers, depending on what you personally preferred. But it's interesting because I'm not sure if you are playing the more N'Zoth variant at the moment that you would put Cold Blood in your deck. But I think there's potential that you could put the Piloted Shredder just into your combo Miracle Rogue deck, just because of the power of the card in its own right.
Yeah, I don't think that's, oil would be something you put in. The current Miracle Rogue is a little bit stronger there, so typically you see people just kind of combining that with the N'Zoth package. Still unsure of if Lovelychook has done that. But no, we do see the Conceal. That is a heavy indication of just it being Miracle here. Yeah,
absolutely. Obviously, the Conceal being a card that you don't even put in all Miracle decks, but... Whew.
Akanai Circle. But he's going to go for the Harrison first. JasonZhou playing this a bit risky. Keep in mind that JasonZhou does not know what deck that Lovelychook is playing here, so he could be expecting a very, the same N'Zoth hybrid, and that means there's a lot less burst, but we do see there's quite a lot of burst in Lovelychook's hand at the moment.
He's potentially going to be punished massively for this, because obviously the reason you put Gadget Zan in your combo rogue deck is just to get all your combo pieces, but sometimes you just draw them all right at the start of the game, and you can just start plugging away for massive amounts of damage without having to go for a big miracle turn, as we're seeing he's going for here, just utilizing the Cold Blood and then the Conceal. He's hoping we'll be locking out the board. However, we see that saving the Organized Circle will work out really nicely here for JasonZhou, even though he did obviously have the option for Light Bomb. Having the hero power here means that he can take out the minion that comes from Lovelychook, even though he gets a pretty fantastic drop off of it.
Darkshire Librarian is fantastic, yeah, so that's going to be able to cycle here for Lovelychook. Now, with the Akanai on the board... Okay, never mind, Sloshburger came down. I was going to say, perhaps Lovelychook could just push damage to the face and, you know, ping the face 3 times with his dagger and get the double eviscerate off, but this decides not to go for it. Shadow Step comes into the hand of Lovelychook here, so that is a heavy indication that Leroy is in there somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, obviously that is a card that could be used with N'Zoth for a really powerful... Oh, sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I was just counting the damage here. So we have 2 off lethal I'm counting. Oh, that's lethal! Right?
That's absolutely
no, not
lethal.
Mana. Oh, there is enough mana. Okay, never mind. That is lethal.
Yeah. Wow. That was a real blowout victory. That's just that's what can happen with the rogue deck. Sometimes you just don't need your gadgets and turn at all because you get all the pieces you need early on. And the conceal, although it wasn't working perfectly there, it was just too much damage early on. It just shows how powerful 4 attack minions can be with the Edwin and the piloted Shredder. Just attacking him for a couple of turns was more than enough damage to get the priest down into burst range. So I really respect Lovelychook there going for his aggressive playstyle, not saving his cards or using them for removal, just realizing I can burst out this game. What is the priest going to do about it?
Well, typically the priest can do a lot about it. I feel like we just saw Lovelychook win an unfavored matchup that he picked into, because if you have the N'Zoth package, it makes it a lot more ideal. In this particular case, you can't just conceal a large minion and cross your fingers because there's Light Bomb.
True.
And if JasonZhou had gone for the less greedy play and just cleared the minions right there, he wouldn't have taken the 8 the following turn. And there wasn't going to be really any sort of option for Cold Blood and Conceal later on in the game. At least not
That's
with 2
actually
minions.
a very good point.
So
I guess
he took
Lovelychook.
Yeah, he took 12 that one turn. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like he went all in. He's like, and the way he played it, it's like, oh, this is an unfavored matchup, so I need to go all in and kind of hope they don't have an answer. But why did you pick the deck into that deck then? It just seems kind of strange. Anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. So we can see right away here we've got the Secret Paladin being picked as a counter to the Rogue deck, and this has, as I think we've seen throughout this tournament, been a pretty good counter to the Rogue deck. Traditionally, Rogue has favoured pretty well against the Secret Paladin, but how do you think this is going to be working out?
Did you pick that up on the microphone? Because I just said a single tier for Blade Flurry.
I did not pick that up. I'm sorry.
It made a little drop sound and it came down. Because that is the exact reason, the nerf of that card is the exact reason why Rogue is no longer favored in this matchup. But
I like it. Sound effects in the casting as well now.
Who needs Blade Flurry though when you have Enter the Colosseum off of Swashbuckler?
Yeah, that's going to be really nice potentially to deal with a big board that might come down from JasonZhou, because even if he just has a couple of minions on board, like a Shredder, the Keeper of Alderman that we see here, in combination with the mysterious Challenger, then the Enter the Colosseum will clear off a massive board from JasonZhou, and it's unlikely that Lovelychook has too much on board that will be punished from himself playing the Enter the Colosseum.
Well, in the meantime, Lovelychook needs to deal with his Haunted Creeper on board. He does have a way to eviscerate it down, but he might be a bit concerned about the second event coming out here. He's going to find out that it is indeed not that, but the Noble Sacrifice. And so that leaves him with only 2 mana left over to... Oh, it looks like he's reaching for the Sap here. Sap is obviously an amazing tool to deal with Mysterious Challenger later on in the game, especially looking at JasonZhou's hand. There is a decent chance that once he gets it onto the field, there's going to be minimal minions, and so you can isolate the Mysterious Challenger that gets avenged and get massive value out of Sap in that situation. So, as much as we said, we've said that this is a good pick for Jason, it is actually favored. It's looking like he might not be able to push for the victory here, though he has gotten Lovelychook down to 20.
Yeah, this is some good early pressure he's got, and it's not slowing down quite yet. The Keeper of Alderman obviously develops a decent body of its own and means that the 1/1 recruit is not susceptible to the dagger or a fan of knives that we might have seen coming down from Lovelychook. And if Lovelychook is not able to deal with this board right now, we're going to see the Mysterious Challenger coming down on the following turn. And I suppose, hopefully, for Lovelychook's sake, the Enter the Colosseum will be enough to deal with that.
Well, Kind of, because you're still living behind a 9-8, a potentially 10-9.
Exactly.
Mysterious Challenger, because it does leave the biggest minion there. That's why I feel like using the sap last turn was a bit premature. He could have dealt with the board in a different way. It would have been slightly expensive, but not as expensive as losing the best option you have to nullify the Mysterious Challenger. Now, I mean, he picks up the second Eviscerate here. He could have gone for, you know, something like, even if he didn't pick the Eviscerate, he could have gone for Coin, SI, Eviscerate, and start clearing up this board, and made it so that the Mysterious Challenger came up on a very weak board, and then had the sap for that situation. But as it stands, this is going to be pretty nice here for JasonZhou.
Yeah, really fantastic. Obviously, this is the exact turn you want to play. Arguably the best minion in your deck, and it's going to be getting a whole load of secrets, because the only secrets I think we've seen are the Avenge and the Noble Sacrifice, which usually you play 2 of in your Secret Paladin decks. So we're going to see 4 secrets coming out for JasonZhou here, and this is a lot of damage for Lovelychook, who does not have much health left at all.
Cold Blood is not the worst pickup here. I would like to see Lovelychook attack with his face here.
Yes,
because then
I think he's going to realize that.
Yeah, he can then enter the Colosseum, and then the SI7 agent can still attack. Then he can coin out the Cold Blood to take out the Mysterious Challenger, unless it's a 9-8. But as a 6-6, he is able to take that out. So, yeah, enter the Colosseum value right now.
Yeah, working really nicely here. As you said, just getting a complete clear board is perfectly good enough. He doesn't really care that he's having to sacrifice his own minion in order to do it. It's interesting because he is being rewarded for holding onto the coin here, but he could have used the coin last turn to activate the SI7 agent and take out the Secret Keeper a bit early. But I suppose given that it's being... Oh, sorry.
Well, he's getting rewarded, but he picked the Cold Blood off the top, so it's not something he could have envisioned.
Exactly,
So.
yeah.
Alright, so JasonZhou, having already seen 1 sap, looks like he's just going to make this a Super Shredder with a Divine Shield and a Taunt. Start pushing the damage to the face here. Lovelychook hasn't shown any heals in the deck so far, so this could be very effective. And it looks like Fan into Eviscerate seems like the only real way to contend this.
That's the play I'm seeing. Obviously, he has the potential to go for Gadget Sand into Conceal and just pray that his opponent has no way of finishing him off. But then you're going down to an extremely scary health total, especially as you have no taunts at the moment, no heal. And if you go down to 2, the 2 damage from the Cog Hammer will finish you off on the following turn. So he's going to have to think very carefully about preserving his life total as much as possible in this situation.
Yeah, and even if he does have healing in the deck, I feel like you cycle here with the Fan. So, oh no, she's gonna go with the Getsu. Okay, I guess this is another option, right? You are taking 7 this coming turn here, but oh, there's the heal bot!
Wow!
No way! What? All right, JasonZhou can still pick up lethal here with something like a Consecration or a 2 silver. Gets a Divine Favor. That's really good as well. 5 cards. Thank you very much here. Wait, what?
Is he? Sure,
I feel like I take the... Why not just take the 5 cards? Like, yeah, you might cycle with Gadgets in. I guess you can pick up more if he fans, but...
What?
Just take the 5 cards, Jason.
Just take the 5 cards. Oh my god. I suppose he's just looking for as much value as possible, because there is a potential for Lovelychook to get a complete board clear here if he picks up something like a sap. But I don't know. I would like the cards there.
The thing is, he could have even, if he didn't hero power, he had 3 mana left for some sort of weird lethal. I'm not sure that there's any possibility for that lethal, but, well, he is going to get slightly rewarded, right? Because now he's going to have 7 cards off of it, so I guess he's a genius. I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, wow, the Lotheb. Yeah, that's really nice as well.
Yeah, Lotheb is absolutely huge here. But now he's going to go for 6 cards. As you see, Lovelychook react adversely to that.
Yeah, there we go.
Lethal here? 7,
I think
8,
that's
9, 10.
exactly
Exact lethal,
yeah.
Alright, so I guess advanced BM just gets you to get the cards the next turn and finish off the game.
Wow, this is JasonZhou has got very high standards. Like, you know what? 5 cards for 3 mana? It's not enough. I want the best.
He anticipated the Shadow Step so that he could get the extra card off of that one, because that does put extra cards into his hand while drawing another one. Right. Anyway, looks like we do have a 5-5 score on our hands as these players are able to correctly pick the counters going back and forth. And again, this is a pretty huge match. The winner of this will be in second or third place, whereas the loser will be in last. So still second place is on the line. If it's a close series though, then Dog will retain that second place as we get into game number 11 here.
Yeah, so both players obviously definitely going to be looking to not just win the series, but win a big win streak of games if possible, as we saw in Zhou versus RDU the other day. I believe it was at this point, we were at 5-5 after the break, and then all of a sudden, Zhou seemed to go on a massive win streak, with his Secret Paladin deck, and we see both players here with what I assume are Secret Paladins. So this particular game is going to be absolutely massive in deciding who takes the series overall.
Yeah, it wasn't just starting at 5-5 though. I think that Zhou went on a 6-0 run with his Secret Paladin, starting from 3-5, going all the way to 9-5. So
right, okay.
With his name, perhaps he did it on purpose. We shall never know. But yeah, who am I? None of your business on both sides here. This is indeed a swingy matchup, but we do see an equality on the side of JasonZhou. That is a comeback mechanic, along with that consecration. And yeah, looks Lovelychook is playing it a bit risky, or playing into the AoE, because typically you don't see the AoE.
Yeah. Huh. No, it's interesting because if JasonZhou does fall behind slightly on the board, obviously this equality is going to be absolutely huge in getting a board reset. But at the moment, it looks like he's going to be in a position to keep a decent board control. He's got the weapon, which will be fairly relevant in swinging and taking out some of the minions. Obviously, a lot of what Lovelychook has is fairly resilient to being killed off because of the amount of death rattles that are there. But the equality on its own, even individually, the consecration, even individually from the equality, will be really nice at clearing out some of what Lovelychook is playing here.
Yeah, considering that there's a lot of late game for these decks, and particularly we see that from Lovelychook, I think that JasonZhou might wait until the power turns with Mysterious Challenger and Dr. Boom to pull the trigger on the equality consecration, particularly because it's almost certain that he's not running Pyromancer, so that might be the only way for him to clear the board. And it might be a one-up for each of those cards, so it's probably going to hold on to that for a little bit here, but in the meantime, doesn't really have much going for him. Only the Knife Juggler to his name as far as minions are concerned, and that does not help a whole lot unless he can somehow Jedi Mind Trick again Lovelychook into getting the redemption going off on his Shredder here.
Yeah, it's, as you said, that does feel like a bit of a Jedi Mind Trick. It's going to be very hard to try and manipulate it into going that way for you. He has the option to go for the, as we see here, the Shredder attack in and then hopefully clear off everything with Consecration. However, the Armani Berserker is a fantastic minion to get here if you're facing a Consecration.
Yeah, I would say so. You're leaving behind a Magma Rager if you do leave that up. It gets buffed into a 3-drop. The best 3-drop in the game being that Magma Rager, obviously. But JasonZhou under the gun here. And I think that he's not going to go for Consecration quite yet, because we're coming up on turn 6 for Lovelychook, and that is the standard Brokeback turn for Liedra in here on his side. So probably going to see Knife Juggler, Hero Power, plus the Redemption, and then just kind of save up for equality. But it's just going to go for the bigger minion instead here, going for the bigger Crocolisk onto the board to kind of compete and set up for future turns.
I think I can respect this play. It's unlikely that Lovelychook has a way of dealing with one big minion quite so much. So he's hoping that once he gets this down, he can use it to be taking away some of the minions that are more resilient to Consecration, like the Armani Berserker that we see here. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all, to see an attack into the Armani Berserker and a Consecration, because he is going to have to clear off some of the damage on the board here, or he is just dead on the following turn. Yeah,
and the funny thing here is that it's nice that Lovelychook actually doesn't have the Mysterious Challenger, because that would have played right into JasonZhou's hands here. As it stands, JasonZhou is going to have to use that Consecration like you mentioned, and then down comes Dr. Boom.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's not the worst, but it is still Dr. Boom. I'm just trying to see how he tries to get out of this, because this is it. If he plays the muster for battle here, then the 1/1s can act as activators for the equality. But obviously the scary thing is that Lovelychook has the 4 damage from the weapon charge here, and then also the boombots can get in a massive amount of damage, and the follow-up, he gets a fantastic minion afterwards as well.
So if if JasonZhou expects there to be some sort of follow-up behind this, he could hold onto his equality and just use the Croclist to take out the Dr. Boom here, but
Very true.
he probably just wants to get on the board as quickly as possible. The issue is that if he uses, I think you just mentioned this right now, but if he uses the equality, then the boombots could take out the Croclist. So that is dicey, to say the least.
I would agree, very dicey. So yeah, he's going for attacking in first while it still has health. Whew.
That hurts a little bit.
I mean, it's hanging on. It's just the fact that it lives is quite a big deal because it might soak up another boombot hit, and after the equality, it would be going to 1 health anyway.
Alright, so JasonZhou looks like he's reaching for the Knife Juggler. Wants to get attacks into the face, so he's doing it in this order, it seems like. Yeah, it doesn't even need to go with Knife Juggler at this point, so it looks like it's going to be the Shredder attacking with one of his 1/1s. He could attack him with his face, I suppose, because the thresholds 7 is kind of equal to 8 at this point.
True.
But it would. There's only a limited amount of times that he can actually do that. He might want to favor having more minions on the board just to make sure the Croclist doesn't die. But indecisive at the very least is JasonZhou. Does get the Repentance procced off here. Gonna go ahead and attack him with its minions. Looks like the Boombot kill off is 1/1. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So did he attack with that other 1/1, or did he get punished for not attacking in first?
Yeah, well, didn't get the attack in the face. He,
okay.
Got taken out. Alright, so Knife Juggler comes out here for Lovelychook just to get extra damage on the board. Let's see if it... Oh, it does take out the River Croclist. It does come back, but that would have been so much better for JasonZhou literally anywhere else. The face would have been better. Yeah. Onto the Shredder would have been better because it comes back again.
Really unfortunate for him there. It's just looking... Oh, this is so close. I mean,
my goodness.
Can he get it in a way? So if he attacks in with the weapon first to proc the... Noble Sacrifice, obviously. If the Avenge goes on the Knife Juggler, he can attack his Shredder into it and then pray that he
gets...
dead! No! Oh no!
The Croclist is dead. Long live the Croclist.
Oh, I suppose it's better that than the Shredder.
Oh no! But... The Shredder's dead!
No way!
Wait, is it? What?
In the Redemption?
Oh no!
Oh no, it's not. Okay.
It looked like it was dead. It looked like he already attacked it with it, so it's actually perfect. Okay, I got scared there because it was no longer able to attack. It looks like he already attacked him with it. But D's Valet comes out, and he was already at 6 health, so the Noble Sacrifice and the True Server was going to kill him anyway, even if the Mysterious Challenger went down there. So yeah, had a couple heart attacks. Didn't really matter in the end because he was dead anyway. But
really heated up at the end there. It was so close for both players. It just really felt like JasonZhou was, almost at the point of stabilizing, just couldn't get quite enough value out of his consecration, considering how many threats were coming out from Lovelychook. Just even the Dr. Boom into Mysterious Challenger, just obviously too overwhelming for JasonZhou to deal with, even though he teched in some more reactive cards into his deck.
Well, now that Lovelychook has taken the mantle of Secret Paladin of Who Am I, let's see what JasonZhou has to deal with this. And doesn't have the shaman to his name. Looks like he's going for Patron Warrior here.
Are you sure it's Patron? I'm not convinced yet. I think it could, no.
He could use another Patron, right? Just put a Firelands portal in that deck somehow, some way. Alright, we're going to see if JasonZhou can fend this off. We've seen Patron Warrior go off against Secret Paladin in the past too. Underwhelming results as the Secret Paladin just kind of beat it down.
Yeah.
It does require the Patron Warrior to get its removal options right away. Gonna start off with Finley and probably Priest because you want to heal up your patrons later on. You can also heal up your face if you're facing a lot of damage. Rogue is a bit of tempo because you're not really doing anything next turn. By picking the Rogue, it's good next turn, but it's bad for the rest of the game. If you pick Priest, it's the exact opposite. But he is going to go with the Priest here. And partially because he can go for the Coin Acolyte next turn, and partially because the Slam is most likely going to be able to be used.
Yeah, I think I respect going for the heal here a lot because, as you're saying, it does obviously synergize with the patrons really nicely, and it can synergize with other other minions in your deck, like the Acolyte of Pain here. And also, when he goes later on into the game, he might just need a bit more healing. And if he's attacking him with the rogue weapon every turn, he will just be under too much pressure when Lovelychook goes in to finish off the game with, as we see, the challenger into Dr. Boom that he has already got lined up for himself.
Well, JasonZhou picks up the Acolyte off the top there, so it gives him the go-ahead to put the first Acolyte on the field, and that's exactly what you want to see as the warrior here. Just draw after draw after draw, and pick up all the answers that you could possibly need, including those nerfed 2-mana executes to take out the big minions. And
this is looking better than it could have done for JasonZhou a lot, potentially, because the fact that Lovelychook has no way of dealing with the Acolyte here, JasonZhou can just get a whole bunch of draw off the Acolyte, and that's exactly what he needs in this deck, as you were saying, because obviously a lot of Patrons cards are really rubbish in their own right if you just have them on their own, but if you can build up a whole board quickly, a whole hand, sorry, quickly, then you can use some of your Patron combo cards to activate your own cards like the Acolytes or Patrons and deal with some of the bigger boards that you might see from your opponent. But as you were saying, he's definitely going to be looking for some way to deal with the big 6 and 7 threats that are going to be coming down from Lovelychook inevitably.
That was one of the saddest turns you've ever seen from Lovelychook. Just, do I give my opponent a bunch of cards, or do I give him even more cards? And decided not to go for the Knife Juggler there in that instance. Does have the Keeper of Oldemon to at least reduce some of the draws here, but Acolyte number 1 is just going to be a happy camper here as he continues to draw.
He's drawing a fair amount here, but he needs to think he can't just rely on drawing cards. He's going to have to get removing some of his opponent's board at some point, and Death's Bright is a really nice way to get on that. It will allow him to take out the Keeper of Alderman this turn, and also set up to destroy a Sludge Belcher on the following turn, which obviously he doesn't know is going to come down, but he can be fairly certain that a 5 health minion, whether it be Sludge Belcher or Loatheb, could potentially come down on the following turn.
No faith! Oh my goodness! So I was thinking, how lucky does Jason feel right now? How good does he feel he is at this game? And gets the second patron just to rub it in. If he had held on to that inner rage, it was going to be Patron City. Just everyone get in here. But gonna have to wait. He does pick up, however, the Loatheb, so he can wait a turn and wait for the patrons on the following turn. So, you know, not nearly as good though, as we do know that Lovelychook runs the full Christmas tree, runs the Repentance, so now JasonZhou's gonna have to wait even longer to put these patrons out in the field.
Oh, this is a Christmas miracle for Lovelychook here. Just really unfortunate that JasonZhou was not able to get the full Patron combo off on that turn, because if he had been able to go for Patron Inner Rage and the activation from the Death Spite while killing the Sludge Belcher at the same time and leaving behind a slime that would help him to propagate his own patrons yet more, he'd be looking in a much better spot to deal with this mysterious challenger. However, the fact that JasonZhou is having to wait a couple of turns before he gets out the patron, it's looking a bit awkward. He doesn't want to use the Death Spite to clear out the enemy minions here, so he's just deciding to play the Sludge Belcher to stem the aggression, which it will do fairly well.
Kind of. There's a Knife Juggler into a Muster for Battle here. One of the few times that you might not play the Dr. Boom because you get to push so much more damage with your Mysterious Challenger here. So yeah, it looks like it's likely going to be Knife Juggler into Muster for... Oh, well, I guess he might be worried about the Death Spite, so maybe he just goes for Knife Juggler plus Hero Power and the Mini-Bot. I feel like the 7 damage is very important right now. Another thing he could do is go for Knife Juggler and just Loatheb, and kind of hope for the 1 and 3.
True.
And Loatheb just kind of locks out a lot of stuff, so he's going to go for the Loatheb here, and that really locks out what JasonZhou's capable of. And hits the knife! Oh my god. 7 damage going to the face here for Lovelychook, and you see Lovelychook rocking back in his chair. He's like, yeah, that's the knife that I wanted to see. And no executes coming out this turn. If they were to come out, it would be 7 mana. Oh my goodness.
This has to be it. This was a perfect Loatheb turn because he's got such a fantastic board here already. So, and even if JasonZhou is able to clear off some of the minions with his weapon, the Loatheb he has on board, and his super expensive spells, he's got the Avenge in backup. He's got the Redemption in backup. And if anything is left up, the competitive spirit will bump everything up yet more.
I think it's time for Dr. Boom. I think it's time to put your faith in the Boom bots and see if they can't snipe up that mysterious challenger. That is your only hope. Your Dr. Boom actually does die off, I believe. I believe the Redemption, or excuse me, the Repentance does go on the Dr. Boom and not one of the Boom bots, even though the battle cry is a little bit strange that way.
Okay. Oh no, so I don't.
Oh, the Repentance already went off the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so, alright, Boombot number 1 goes on to the Lotheb, which will die.
Wow, okay. It's a start.
But the buff goes on to the Mysterious Challenger. Redemption brings back that Defender. Lotheb dies. And now there's 13 damage on the board with a muster for battle, and that's going to be game over to Lovelychook.
That was so close. Just, really well played there for Lovelychook, as you said, deciding to go for the Lotheb there just to lock out the board. And JasonZhou almost got the Boombot RNG that he needed to close out the game, but just the sheer power of Mysterious Challenger bringing out all those minions, just not quite enough. And here we go. The Secret Paladin's taking another one down.
JasonZhou punished for not believing in the heart of the cards. Could have gotten the Inner Rage off the top there.
And that would have made a big difference into the how the game went. Just not even the fact that he got off more patrons, but just that he'd gone for a patron combo on that turn would have been absolutely huge.
Yeah, you can understand why he went for the play that he did go for, but couldn't really have imagined it snowballing. Obviously, Secret Paladin is a deck that excels in snowballing, but it just ended up in a situation where he couldn't really do a whole lot. And here we go. JasonZhou looks like that is a Freeze Mage.
Could still be either at this point. Frost Nova makes me think that it is most likely a Freeze Mage we see here, which I could be wrong here, but I think that's a pretty good matchup for the Freeze Mage here in general.
Yeah, Freeze Mage is historically good against Secret Paladin.
Yes.
But it's not a guaranteed matchup. It's one of those matchups that Freeze Mage connoisseurs likes to play. They're like, bad Freeze Mage players lose to Secret Paladin, but not me. I beat Secret Paladin every single time.
Well, we've seen certain players who just really know how to pilot their Freeze Mage. Just like even yesterday when the heroic Tavern Brawl obviously came out yesterday, we saw Chess Dude going 12-0, I believe, or at least getting 12 wins with a Freeze Mage. So I suppose if JasonZhou feels just as comfortable, he'll be trying to target the Secret Paladin here with it as well. We do realise that he didn't go for it last turn, so he probably felt more comfortable with his Patron play than his Freeze Mage play, which potentially doesn't bode well for him here at all.
Yeah, there are things in the Secret Paladin that make it really awkward. If there's Rag text into the deck here, then that makes it much better for Lovelychook.
Yes.
And if you can fill out the board and get a ridiculous start like he has thus far, this is a board that JasonZhou cannot deal with this amount of mana. And if Lovelychook picks up Lotheb off the top pretty soon, that could lock out the game because that would just push so much damage that JasonZhou would not be able to deal with. Has some of his late game options, but not some of the traditional ones for Secret Paladin here, just Lovelychook. Does pick up the Sludge Belcher though, so that will help him a little bit. Going to opt to take off the Divine Shield rather than give the Acolyte a few more cards. Divine Shield's really annoying for for Freeze Mage though. Alright, Doomsayer off the top really needs to come out here to save JasonZhou, or else he's in a lot of trouble. Does not come.
So, just unfortunately for JasonZhou, he's getting all his combo cards here, isn't he? But he's not getting any way of dealing with the board. He can stall with the Frost Nova that we see in hand, but he needs something like a Doomsayer to back it up. Or what he's really looking for, I suppose, in the next few turns, a Blizzard or Flame Strike. Got that in his deck.
Yeah, JasonZhou didn't really want to get these Ice Barriers in his hand before getting off the Mad Scientist. But that is kind of acting as card draw for him because he gets to stall for a little bit, getting these +8 healing for the time being. So, even though Lovelychook has gone off to a really nice start, it isn't quite over yet here. Looks like Lovelychook is just not going to play out some of his minions. He's concerned about the freeze coming up on his turn 6, which could be Blizzard. Easy for us to look at here and want him to play the Sludge Belcher, but just going to go ahead and play it a bit slower. does still have quite a lot of damage onto the field here. This does give JasonZhou a bit of room to play a second Ice Barrier rather than go for the freeze quite yet. Only has that Frost Nova in hand. And it's one of those situations where if you don't have Flame Strike in your deck, you better have Doomsayer or you're going to be freezing for several turns in a row. And once you freeze, you can't stop freezing because then your Ice Block gets popped.
Yeah, exactly. I think I can respect very much going for the Ice Barrier here once again rather than the freeze, because he wants to couple it with Doomsayer if he can draw it, and also he can expect to be facing down a lot more damage in the coming turns if he were to see something like Mysterious Challenger on this turn, or the potential Dr. Boom, Tyrion, any of the other big threats, or even just a Sludge Belcher that would make it really threatening. So coming into these following turns though, he was really looking to find some way of dealing with this board, because there's a whole lot of aggression coming out from Lovelychook, just constant board pressure. These minions have been around since the start of the game pretty much. And so do you think we can expect a freeze here just to stop the Ice Block from being popped?
Yeah, it's just, there's no Jason basically just loses the game here if he lets his Ice Block get popped, because there's no real way to continue stalling from there.
I agree.
Lovelychook, unfortunately, even though he stopped putting minions on the board a few turns ago, he doesn't have enough room for this Dr. Boom right now. So JasonZhou, looking at his hand, it's a lot of burn and not a whole lot of other options. So it looks like the plan for him is just eschew Alexstrasza and go straight for that. If he picks up another Ice Block, that will help him immensely in order to give him several turn lethal potentially. At the moment, Lovelychook, kind of a tough turn, doesn't want to play Dr. Boom quite yet. Because he doesn't get too much value out of it. He could just play the Sludge Belcher right now to prevent the Thanos from getting too much value, or the two minions on board from just chipping damage to the face. Looking at JasonZhou's hand, with the Evolved Kobold, with the Thorson there, those 3 cards go to 3, the Forgotten Torch goes to 2, and so you wouldn't be able to play all those on the same turn. It looks like Lovelychook is concerned about that Thanos, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from. The Blizzard here is a really nice pickup because it removes a whole bunch of the minions and it also freezes. Unfortunately though, the fact that you're removing a whole bunch of minions means that Dr. Boom all of a sudden becomes live and can get the full amount of value out of its boom bots as well.
Yeah, definitely. JasonZhou has a few tricky turns coming up here if he wants to navigate this correctly. He pretty much has to Blizzard right here. I'm curious if he commits an Ice Lance just to start clearing up part of this board. As far as the Evolved Kobold is concerned, he might want to find a turn in which he fireballs the face. Okay, so looks like he was checking for
a vet redemption.
Right. But
I suppose.
But Redemption brings back a 1/1, which you can ping up anyway.
Yeah.
If it was Avenge, then he just freezes what comes back. But if he just Blizzarded, then it would have been the same thing. The Avenge minion would have been frozen regardless.
Yeah, I can't really see what he was going for there. I'm sure chat will tell us exactly what we missed if we did miss anything. But
no, they're putting question marks. I see question marks in chat, so they're as confused as we are.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Good to know that I'm as good as Twitch chat. That's where I aspire to be in life.
Well, Dr. Boom has come down, which puts a lot of pressure on JasonZhou here.
It looks very much like the Ice Block will be popped, if not here, on the following turn. He obviously has the potential to go for Ice Lance onto the Dr. Boom to shut it out. If he does go for that, then there would be 9 damage coming in, but he thinks, right, I need to finish this game off with Burn. So if he gets the Emperor Thaurissan proc here, he now has access to what the Kobold double Fireball is, 16 damage. And then he can go for double Ice Lance, which will get him another 6, getting up to 22. So he's not miles off, but he's going to need to pick up something like more Freeze to stop him from dying on the following turn, or another Ice Block.
If he gets a Frostbolt, he is lethal.
If he gets a Frostbolt, because he cannot use one of the Fireballs and go for
he can't
torch.
he can't do both Fireballs. So the Fireball would be 8, the Frostbolt would be 5, and then the 2 Ice Lances are both 6. So 6, that's 12 plus the Fireball, which is 8. 12 plus the 5 would be 17, plus the Fireball would be 25. And then if he and then he would be able to use the or just he can ping.
Torch.
He can just ping at that point, but
Okay.
the torch as well. But he just doesn't have enough mana to play all these fireballs in hand.
It's tough. So, well, he's got actually quite a lot of outs here. It's nicely played just going for this strategy because the ice block that he's got up means that on the following turn, if he draws ice block, he could go for something like a fireball to a face plus a forgotten torch and a ping, and then on the following turn go for the evolved kobold into fireball, ice lance, ice lance.
Alright, so Frostbolt or Ice Block here are his outs. Picks up an Alexstrasza. That's not going to do it unless we've done our math wrong. I don't believe he has lethal right now.
So he can ice lance him. He can Alexstrasza himself and then ice lance the Dr. Boom to just stop him from dying on board.
Right. Yeah, that's his only play here. It does help quite a bit though, especially. Although the Noble Sacrifice is kind of a big deal here, as far as blocking the Alexstrasza from being able to attack. So, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on board. The Boombot could go face here, does not, unfortunately for him. The funny thing is, typically when you play in the Zoth, you don't want to bring back Boombots, but in this case, you really do.
Yeah, exactly. Just any way of proccing it on your turn.
I think I prefer that actually. I think I like throwing all my 1/1s in, just getting Boombots.
Yeah, no, I can see that. We see obviously if he had not removed the Alexstrasza, the taunt could have been a big deal, but he does decide to remove it. So the taunt from Tyrion is not so big, but it does just mean more damage. There's a real threat of lethal on the following turn, and Doomsayer is not the pickup that JasonZhou was looking for at all.
Ice Block is what he needs right now. I don't think anything else saves him at this point.
Has he used both Frost Novas? He could get a second freeze here.
Right. Oh, there we go.
Yep, there we go.
Ice. He's still alive, improbably.
It's another turn.
JasonZhou is still improbably alive, and also he can attack with his Acolyte to get 2 draws the coming turn.
Yeah, unless we see the Consecration coming in this turn from Lovelychook, but he seems he's going for the N'Zoth instead. As you were saying, the Boombot's really relevant here.
There's the Frost. Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
What is happening? JasonZhou's immortal.
And so now he can Frost Nova and start flinging some spells to face on the same turn.
And he picks up the Mad Scientist.
So that's going to get an ice block because he's played both ice barriers already, hasn't he? Whoa.
What is happening? Don't play Doomsayer. You might die. No, he might die. He can die now.
Oh, from the Boombots?
Yeah, the Boombots can kill him.
Oh, he's given his...
What have you done,
with the
JasonZhou?
Consecration as well. Oh my god, with the attacking and the Consecration, he just has to hit, what, 6 damage with Boombots. No, but if he... Oh no, the Ice Block doesn't proc on his turn. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. So he can just die right now. 6 damage from the Boombots will kill him.
Just needs to get 6. Can he do it?
Get it! Oh! That's his game! JasonZhou, what have you done?
Oh my god.
You didn't need to do that, JasonZhou. Why?
Oh, that's so brutal. I'm at a loss for words. Perfect for being a caster, I know, but oh my god. That, I suppose he didn't know that there was a Consecration in hand, so he thought the Boombots have to hit a perfect 8. But even so, just giving your opponent the chance there. You with us, DTwo?
I'm actually at a loss for words. I am actually literally unable to speak. Well, except for these words. But
you literally can't.
I literally can't, as I proved that wrong by speaking right now. But
oh god, that's so unfortunate. That was such a long game, and he got draw after draw just to keep him hanging on, and just gave it away at the last moment. So if he had decided to shoot spells at the face there instead, or just go for the Mad Scientist, it looks like he would have had a really good chance at taking that potentially, with the Frostbolt still being a really relevant card with just the 1 Ice Lance.
Well, JasonZhou is going to go for the Reno Lock this time. This isn't that bad of a matchup. It's pretty close actually. This is also a matchup that was played quite often before Standard. And for the Secret Paladin, it's just kind of like playing Zoo against the Reno Lock. You're just trying to find situations where it's extremely awkward to clear your board, utilizing your secrets, utilizing your sticky minions. so that you're always left with something. And you always want to be in a position where Reno is not an out for your opponent. So you do a few trades here and there. You want to put pressure down, but typically you just want to, you know, make it so that you continuously can put them in a bind where they don't really have good answers for you. But
absolutely. But what we see here from JasonZhou already is 2 Twilight Drakes. Does that make you think that it's not a Reno deck?
Oh,
or do you
right,
think
right.
it's perhaps running a couple of duplicates in it?
He did play Handlock, I believe. Was it him playing Handlock before? I think
I couldn't tell you.
someone was playing Handlock in round 3. I think it might have been JasonZhou.
Okay, and I mean, that looks like it could be what he's going for here, because I'm not sure if you were to put duplicates in your Reno lock, the Twilight Drake is the first one that you'd put duplicates in for necessarily. And when we see the second Sunfury Protector as well, I think this is very unlikely to be Reno lock all of a sudden. So how do you think that's going to change this matchup?
It helps JasonZhou because typically when you play the Reno lock, you are very inconsistent as far as your removal is concerned, and the amount of healing that you get from Reno isn't very relevant all the time against the Secret Paladin, because against the Secret Paladin, all they're trying to do is build these annoying boards, and they're typically fighting for the board anyway, right?
Yeah.
And once they have the board, they just push a ton of damage because they just have, you know, all of the massive minions at their disposal. But if you have more removal, or if you're able to get rid of those boards, then the healing doesn't really matter anymore because you're not going to take any damage anyway. So this is going to help Jason much more than if he was playing Reno.
Yeah, I think I have to agree there. The fact that when you do lose to Secret Paladin, you're often facing down extremely scary boards with them dropping cards like Dr. Boom, Mysterious Challenger, and Tyrion to finish out the game. So I think the fact that he has more consistent removal with the double Shadow Flame we see already in hand is going to be much more effective for him for clearing out a board after we see the power minions that JasonZhou will hopefully for him be dropping in the coming turns, because it's getting it well into the late game now as he's going into turn 8, and he's got a pretty terrible hand if JasonZhou is able to deal with all of the minions that he's got.
Alright, well, JasonZhou test for the secrets here does proc the Avenge and the Noble Sacrifice, so the slime gets buffed up, but that gets taken up by the Drake here. And Lovelychook is picking up some reasonable minions, but none of the power minions that he really wants, like the Dr. Boom, Tyrion, Mysterious Challenger, what have you. And having to play out secrets from the hand, not really want to be seeing. And meanwhile, on the side of JasonZhou, he has a lot of answers. Doesn't have much power on his side now that he's played out his last Twilight Drake right here, but still, he has quite a lot of time, and in particular, picking up that Siphon Soul means that he can deal with at least one of the big minions right now.
Yeah, and time is, I would say, in the favour of JasonZhou here, because even if Lovelychook starts drawing into his bigger late game threats, as I've mentioned them being Doctors 6, 7, and 8, JasonZhou has answers to that in hand, like the Siphon Soul for certain cards, and if he can get a decently sized minion on board, the Shadow Flame will be really effective at clearing out any medium-sized board that Lovelychook can play later on in the game.
And so, good sense of what the secret was here from JasonZhou, realizing that was likely to be competitive spirit by playing before. Ooh. And Repentance is likely the worst card in Lovelychook's deck to pick up right now. He's just going to go ahead and play that out, and it is getting so bleak that we might even see a concede soon. It's never over because he could start picking up his bombs, and perhaps JasonZhou doesn't have a way to deal with it. But yeah, it's starting to get a little bit bleak here for JasonZhou. Or for Lovelychook.
Do you think that we are going to see Jaraxxus in the coming turns?
I think Jaraxxus right now is fine.
Yeah.
Though it gets Repentance, though. What am I talking about?
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. almost had a 1 health Jaraxxus there. Right. Do not play Jaraxxus when there might be Repentance up.
Was a very good save, and he gets the Secret Keeper on the turn after. Just terrible draw after terrible draw for Lovelychook here. Really unfortunate.
Yeah, Secret Keeper, possibly the second worst draw in his entire deck after getting the Repentance last turn. Now it's safe to play the Jaraxxus. He has removal in hand, he has the taunt. He could start drawing for more stuff in general, but if he blanks, then he's doing a whole lot of nothing. But that's more than nothing.
Not blank.
Yeah, I would classify that as a hit.
Yeah. I think that's a non-blank by anyone's standards. And all of a sudden, Lovelychook has to find some way of dealing with this. He does pick up a really good draw, finally.
Yeah,
That's a lot more like...
Yeah, a couple of Belchers and a Shredder is pretty good. Would like to see Tyrion, but yeah, there was no choice for Lovelychook. Had to play that out at that turn.
And I suppose here for JasonZhou, the fact that he did not play the Lord Jaraxxus here works out quite nicely for him, because that's a threatening board all of a sudden. For someone who's at only maximum 15 health, that's pretty scary.
Well, he would have been able to deal with this board regardless. Going to be the Boom bot getting Shadow Flamed here, and does not take out the N'Zoth, but able to clear off this board regardless with the remaining minions. Puts the Void Caller on the board. I don't think JasonZhou is too concerned if it pulls out Jaraxxus. That's just a nice beefy minion to put out there. And
yeah, I agree. And the true silver here is, I mean, considering what he's got in his deck, it's not a terrible pickup, but it's not what he's looking for. I mean, nothing in his deck at this point is that fantastic. I suppose Tyrion is pretty much what he's looking for. The Mysterious Challenger has been weakened significantly due to the amount of secrets that Lovelychook has drawn throughout this game. And even Dr. Boom would just trade really unfavourably against the weakened Dr. Boom that we see from JasonZhou already.
Yeah, well, this game looks like it's just about over. JasonZhou's going to put some damage in. He has 8 damage of Burnt in hand. The Mysterious Challenger is not going to make a bit of difference right now. And Lovelychook...
Oh.
Feels bad, man. Lovelychook's going to give it up. Does get a lot of information out of JasonZhou there. Realizes that the Jaraxxus is in there. Realizes that I think he saw a bunch of duplicates, so he knows that it's probably going to be handlock. So that will give him information going forward in this series. And taking a look at his decks, he has Mage, Warrior, Shaman.
That's true. So depending on what archetypes he's bringing, this would be really interesting, because traditionally, back in the days of patron dominance, handlock was kind of seen as the best way to counter it due to the really good number of board clears that they have, like Hellfire, which takes it out fantastically, and the Shadow Flames that we saw as well. But we do see that Lovelychook has brought the Freeze Mage, so he's going to be going for that instead. What side would you rather be on in this matchup, and why would you say that, do you reckon?
I would say the Freeze Mage, even though, well, it's tough because there's a lot of big minions on the side of the handlock, but the Freeze Mage are a lot more burny these days, for lack of a better term. And you don't have to worry about Reno either, so you can really just burn them. The only thing you're worried about are anti-kill bots and Lothebs.
Sure.
And it's hard for JasonZhou, because if you pick up the Reno, then that's something that can really deter your opponent from doing that, and it becomes like this cat and mouse where you get your opponent low enough where you force them to Reno. But you can kind of do the same thing with this situation as well, right? You can get them down to the low 20s, force them to heal bot, and if they do, then you simply just Alexstrasza them the turn afterward. So this same kind of cat and mouse, but less burst healing on the side of JasonZhou, and instead of heal bot plus Reno, he has 2 heal bots. Interesting to see if he puts Bran in the deck as well.
Yeah, that would be really interesting, because there are obviously already we see minions that will synergize it with it quite nicely in the Twilight Drake and the Antique Heal bot, and there could potentially be others behind as well. But we see from Lovelychook, he's already got a pretty good starting hand. He had the turn 1 Mad Scientist into draw from the Novice Engineer, into turn 3 more draw with a secret now as well. So he's getting some pretty decent options. Coming into the later turns, he's got, if a big board does come up, he can go for something like the Frost Nova Doomsayer. He will be looking for more draw cards, I would say, coming into the following turns, and does pick up the Acolyte to make sure that he doesn't start feeling like his hand is getting stale.
The issue with going for Frost Nova Doomsayer a bit too late, though, is that your opponent might be running 2 Siphonsals, which is an issue, obviously.
Very true.
So, Lovelychook, a couple turns ago, he was determining whether or not he wanted to go for a bit more chip damage with the Mad Scientist, but realized that getting the right cards going forward is a bit more important. So, did go for the trade first, and then went for the card draw here. Does have double Ice Barrier in hand, just for a little bit more stall. These Ice Barriers are acting as 1.5 card draws, essentially, depending on how much power is on JasonZhou's board. And for Lovelychook here, continuing to be able to draw, which is going to help him out quite a bit, has the Alexstrasza already in hand. Jaraxxus, by the way, is another source of heal, but there's ridiculous amounts of burn. So if you're Lovelychook, you typically don't want to ever set up 2-turn lethal, right? You always just want to kill them in 1 turn. Obviously, other than Alexstrasza, you don't get him down to 6 and say, I'll Fireball next turn because of things like Jaraxxus.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. But even then, unless unless the freeze mage has dealt a huge amount of their burst damage already, 15 damage is what they're usually getting you down to anyway with Alex Straza. So the 15 health that you get from Lord Jaraxxus may not be enough to get him out of range. And we see from Lovelychook here, he's building up his combo to a really respectable level already. He's got the Alex Straza, he's got Fireball, Frostbolt, and Ice Lance, and a Blood Mage Thalnos in hand, which is lethal after the Alex Straza comes down. So he's lovely. JasonZhou is going to have to find some way of healing himself up afterwards, which he does have with the antique heal bot. But if Lovelychook can find just a bit more burst, it's looking like this game's going to be his already.
Yeah, picking up all the pieces that he needs, even multiple freezes to hold off JasonZhou for quite a while here. Last turn was a bit of a first world problem for Lovelychook. He was reaching for that Arcane Intellect, or excuse me, 2 turns ago, but he did have too many cards in hand. So, more damage on the field for JasonZhou. This is where you start to feel helpless as the hand log. It's like, well, I can only just put cards in the field and hope that I'm able to get the damage in. And not a whole lot of burst in JasonZhou's deck. We did see the Doom Guard, but nothing like Leroy Power, Faceless, or anything like that.
I can't remember where we are in terms of bug fixes at the moment. If he blizzards here, would the imp that comes from the imp gang boss be frozen or not? I can't quite remember how the interaction works.
Yeah.
It's okay, brilliant.
However, if you Cone of Cold it doesn't get frozen. Just a bit of trivia for you guys.
Bit of trivia. Wow. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, so Blizzard will freeze it. And things like, Knife Juggler were on the board and it killed the Knife Juggler at the same time it killed the Imp King boss, or at the same time it spawned the Imp, then the knife would go out, but it doesn't work for Death Rattles because they just die. And while
someone's been watching their disguised toast.
You have to know these things. I used to be a pro player,
It's true. Okay, yeah, it's true. I mean, it's coming up here, so clearly it is relevant.
All right. So, Lovelychook going to go ahead and Fireball here. You might be thinking, well, he might need that. Why do it before Alex Straza? And he's putting JasonZhou in a position where he's forcing him to heal, and once he heals, then he Alex Strazas. Looking at Lovelychook's hand, double Frostbolt, double Ice Lance with the Thalnos means that he has 4 from both Frostbolts and 5 from both the Ice Lance, so that is 18. He has lethal next turn.
Wow.
Which means that JasonZhou needs to heal right here.
And he's not opting for that. It looks like, there's the Sludge Belcher, so assuming your math is correct.
2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, he has enough mana for it as well. He's just double checking here.
He's surely going to see it. I have faith.
Yeah?
Wow, he sees it, and that means he's going to take the game and the series as well.
JasonZhou decided not to call Lovelychook's bluff there. Felt like, well, if I heal right here, he's just going to Alex Straza me on 9. But gets punished. And that's going to be it.
And it's playing exactly into, as you were saying, that cat and mouse game. Like, does he heal before the Alex Straza? And he was thinking, this is probably a bluff, and I can't afford to heal and then go back down to 15 straight away. So I can understand where he's coming from, but unfortunately, there was just enough burst in Lovelychook's hand to be able to take out that game and the series off the back of once again, a really disgusting load of secret paladin runs, one after the other.
Yeah, I gotta say though that today JasonZhou's play was a bit off, perhaps because he just cast a best of 17. It is kind of tiring, guys, when you do cast these matches. So, on the other hand, Lovelychook, pretty nice play from him, especially that last game, able to identify his outs and perfectly play into a situation where it was basically checkmate, right? Whatever move that JasonZhou made there was going to be countered. Not sure if we have an interview in Chinese. Regardless, we are about to finish up here. And just waiting for the cues from the Chinese side. Again, we don't really... Sometimes they go for the interview for the Chinese player, and sometimes they don't. So you just kind of have to follow their lead here. If they don't, then we are going to be finishing up right now. One thing to keep in mind before you guys go head off is that the next match is going to be on the 19th of November. That's in 2 days from now. So roughly a day and a half from now, because of the fact that this cast has taken a little bit of time. We have our results for the week. Life Coach over Breath. We had Eloise over Jongbo, Tice over Dog, Sixo over RDU, Rained over Colento today, and finally Lovelychook over JasonZhou. That has severely shaken up the standings as of right now. About a bunch of different things have gone on, including Breath being out, Tice being in, and now with this last game, Lovelychook being in a very good spot to move on. But looks like we're going to a quick break. We'll say our goodbyes after this. Just if you guys want to stick around and hear us say goodbye, then stick around until after this break.
好，那么基奥刚刚打完，就是刚才也是打得非常激烈啊，一度打成5-5以后，当时还比较激烈，突然佛祖奇发威，连下了几城。你觉得今天赢的最关键是什么？
最关键的肯定是佛祖奇吧，因为就是狂野模式佛祖奇，其实还是我感觉是最厉害的卡组，就是有的时候他兵法奴隶战其实没有那么的虚，就前期只要稍微顺一点，或者对面卡手一下，还是能跑掉的。
那你觉得你打，比如说南京站的比赛会用吗？像
就南京站一般都是佛祖奇，然后奴隶战再加一套别的吧。我感觉这两套应该是必带的。
那你一开局这个我们知道也不是很0-2落后，现在打成2-2以后就出现形势又比较好了。那最后一场对狗哥有针对什么？想问有些什么战术吗？
其实就是因为是征服模式嘛，
对，
我就选的是。就是9个职业里，应该我感觉最强的套牌吧，就是能跑掉的最好。
就是特别是一些弱势职业怎么跑吧。
对，就弱势职业就找准一个职业去关吧。
好，那我们最后一轮的比赛就后天开始，我们重新进行。那大家敬请期待吧。
Alright guys, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you very much for watching, and there's gonna be rebroadcast right after this, so stay tuned for that if you just arrived. Derek, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
I think I would just like to say thank you very much to Twitch for sponsoring this English broadcast of the Celestial Invitational. It would not be possible without them. So make sure that you go and get your Twitch Prime subscription. It's a fantastic deal. You get the ad-free viewing, a free subscription each month, and all the cool in-game items like the Tyrande skin that we saw in Hearthstone recently. Make sure that you follow Tempo Storm as well, the channel that you are on right now watching it. Follow them on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Haven't got many followers yet, so come see what it's like on my Twitter. And I think that's about it.
Yep, same message from me here. Make sure you get all that good stuff. Make sure you support Twitch and Tempo Storm and us as well. And most importantly, guys, the next broadcast is on the 19th. We're on to the last round of the Celestial's Invitational regular season. Round 5 is going to be Conquest Best of 17, this time with Standard. So you do not want to miss that. We're finally going back to Standard. Going to have some normal matches, though Conquest puts a wrench in things because it's hard to find 9 decks that can find a win in this sort of environment. But look forward to that 2 days from now. Make sure you check in. Make sure you tune into those matches. It's going to be really good to see who moves on to the playoff stages and who falls out. Playoff stages being $30,000 for that 8-man tournament. So that's going to be it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in a couple of days.